we listening to the Art of War tonight. Thank you guys for coming in, tuning in. Those of you who are early, at least. Pretty sure there's gonna be a few more people coming in, strolling in. Once again, like I said, we're listening to the Art of War by Sun Tzu. This is not a long book, probably like an hour, 10 minutes. So, hour 13 minutes. Not pretty long at all. So, if I don't do too much talking, we should have a quick night. If I do, probably be 2 hour live. I'm not for sure yet, but about to start this book.
Chapter 1, Laying Plans. Sun Tzu said, "The art of war is of vital importance to the state. It is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin. Hence, it is a subject of inquiry which can on no account be neglected." The art of war, then, is governed by 5 constant factors to be taken into account in one's deliberations when seeking to determine the conditions obtaining in the field. These are: 1. The moral law. 2. Heaven. 3. Earth. 4. The commander. 5. Method and discipline. The moral law causes the people to be in complete accord with their ruler, so that they will follow him regardless of their lives, undismayed by any danger. Heaven signifies night and day, cold and heat, times and seasons. Earth comprises distances, great and small, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, the chances of life and death. The commander stands for the virtues of wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. By method and discipline are to be understood the marshalling of the army in its proper subdivisions, the graduations of rank among the officers, the maintenance of roads by which supplies may reach the army, and the control of military expenditure. These 5 heads should be familiar to every general. He who knows them will be victorious. He who knows them not will fail. Therefore, in your deliberations, when seeking to determine the military conditions, let them be made the basis of a comparison. In this wise: 1. Which of the 2 sovereigns is imbued with the moral law? 2. Which of the 2 generals has most ability? 3. With whom lie the advantages derived from heaven and earth? 4. On which side is discipline most rigorously enforced? 5. Which army is stronger? 6. On which side are officers and men more highly trained? 7. In which army is there the greater constancy, both in reward and punishment? By means of these 7 considerations, I can forecast victory or defeat. The general that hearkens to my counsel and acts upon it will conquer. Let such a one be retained in command. The general that hearkens not to my counsel, nor acts upon it, will suffer defeat. Let such a one be dismissed. While heeding the profit of my counsel, avail yourselves also of any helpful circumstances over and beyond the ordinary rules. Accordingly, as circumstances are favorable, one should modify one's plans. All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. Hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder, and crush him. If he is secure at all points, be prepared for strength, evade him. If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him, pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Attack him when he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. These military devices leading to victory must not be divulged beforehand. Now, the general who wins a battle makes many calculations in his temple ere the battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations beforehand. Thus, do many calculations lead to victory and few calculations to defeat? How much more no calculation at all? It is by attention to this point that I can foresee who is likely to win or lose. Chapter 2: Waging War. Sun Tzu said, "In the operations of war, where there are in the field 1,000 swift chariots, as many heavy chariots, and 100,000 mail-clad soldiers, with provisions enough to carry them 1,000 li, the expenditure at home and at the front, including entertainment of guests, small items such as glue and paint, and sums spent on chariots and armor, will reach the total of 1,000 ounces of silver per day. Such is the cost of raising an army of 100,000 men. When you engage in actual fighting, if victory is long in coming, then men's weapons will grow dull, and their ardor will be damped. If you lay siege to a town, you will exhaust your strength. Again, if the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain. Now, when your weapons are dulled, your ardor damped, your strength exhausted, and your treasure spent, other chieftains will spring up to take advantage of your extremity. Then no man, however wise, will be able to avert the consequences that must ensue. Thus, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been seen associated with long delays. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged war. It is only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war that can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. A skillful soldier does not raise a second levy, neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Bring war material with you from home, but forage on the enemy. Thus the army will have food enough for its needs. Poverty of the state exchequer causes an army to be maintained by contributions from a distance. Contributing to maintain an army at a distance causes the people to be impoverished. On the other hand, the proximity of an army causes prices to go up, and high prices cause the people's substance to be drained away. When their substance is drained away, the peasantry will be afflicted by heavy exactions. With this loss of substance and exhaustion of strength, the homes of the people will be stripped bare, and 3/10 of their income will be dissipated, while government expenses for broken chariots, worn-out horses, breastplates and helmets, bows and arrows, spears and shields, protective mantles, draft oxen and heavy wagons will amount to 4/10 of its total revenue. Hence, a wise general makes a point of foraging on the enemy. One cartload of the enemy's provisions is equivalent to 20 of one's own, and likewise, a single pickle from his provender is equal to 20 from one's own store. Now, in order to kill the enemy, our men must be roused to anger. That there may be advantage from defeating the enemy, they must have their rewards. Therefore, in chariot fighting, when 10 or more chariots have been taken, those should be rewarded who took the first. Our own flags should be substituted for those of the enemy, and the chariots mingled and used in conjunction with our own. The captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept. This is called using the conquered foe to augment one's own strength.
Yeah, like I said, you said repeat what I just said. What I say? I'll be forgetting. But oh yeah, I said make sure y'all like this video, give it a thumbs up. That's one of the things I remember I said. But yeah, we definitely here every night. My some of the books I'll be posting. Oh yeah, I was just saying thank you for coming through. Like once again, you always popping up. So that's what I was saying. But the book, a lot of books I'll be posting. I ain't gonna say a lot, but some of the books I'll be posting be getting copyrighted. So Hopefully, this ain't one of those books that get me copyrighted. But it still got a lot of information until we'll see. Like I said, this book is probably like super short compared to the other ones we've been listening to. This one only an hour and 13 minutes, minus my dialogue.
In war, then, let your great object be victory, not lengthy campaigns. Thus it may be known that the leader of armies is the arbiter of the people's fate, the man on whom it depends whether the nation shall be in peace or in peril. Chapter 3. Attack by Stratagem. Sun Tzu said, "In the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter and destroy it is not so good. So too, it is better to recapture an army entire than to destroy it. To capture a
I know this book says the art of war, but it's also for like business. Like if you're a business owner, like you can use this. Like it's the same strategies. Shit, even if you ain't in the war, you go to school, shit, dealing with people on a daily basis, this book can come in handy a lot. So
regiment, a detachment, or a company entire, and to destroy them. Hence, to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Thus, the highest form of generalship is to balk the enemy's plans. The next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy's forces. The next, in order, is to attack the enemy's army in the field.
oh, that's cool.
And the worst policy
cool.
of all is to besiege walled cities.
All we doing is listening.
The rule is not to besiege walled cities if it can possibly be avoided. The preparation of mantlets, movable shelters, and various implements of war will take up 3 whole months, and the piling up of mounds over against the walls will take 3 months more. The general, unable to control his irritation, will launch his men to the assault like swarming ants, with the result that 1/3 of his men are slain, while the town still remains untaken. Such are the disastrous effects of a siege. Therefore, the skilled leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. With his forces intact, he will dispute the mastery of the empire, and thus, without losing a man, his triumph will be complete. This is the method of attacking by stratagem. It is the rule in war. If our forces are 10 to the enemy's 1, to surround him. If 5 to 1, to attack him. If twice as numerous, to divide our army into 2. If equally matched, we can offer battle. If slightly inferior in numbers, we can avoid the enemy. If quite unequal in every way, we can flee from him. Hence, though an obstinate fight may be made by a small force, in the end, it must be captured by the larger force. Now, the general is the bulwark of the state. If the bulwark is complete at all points, the state will be strong. If the bulwark is defective, the state will be weak. There are 3 ways in which a ruler can bring misfortune upon his army: by commanding the army to advance or to retreat, being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. This is called hobbling the army. By attempting to govern an army in the same way as he administers a kingdom, being ignorant of the conditions which obtain in an army. This causes restlessness in the soldiers' minds. By employing the officers of his army without discrimination, through ignorance of the military principle of adaptation to circumstances. This shakes the confidence of the soldiers. But when the army is restless and distrustful, trouble is sure to come from the other feudal princes. This is simply bringing anarchy into the army and flinging victory away. Thus we may know that there are 5 essentials for victory. 1. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. 2. He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. 3. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. 4. He will win who, prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. 5. He will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Chapter 4. Tactical Dispositions. Sun Tzu said, the good fighters of old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat, and then waited for an opportunity of defeating the enemy. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. Thus, the good fighter is able to secure himself against defeat, but cannot make certain of defeating the enemy. Hence the saying, one may know how to conquer without being able to do it. Security against defeat implies defensive tactics. Ability to defeat the enemy means taking the offensive. Standing on the defensive indicates insufficient strength, attacking a superabundance of strength. The general who is skilled in defense hides in the most secret recesses of the earth. He who is skilled in attack flashes forth from the topmost heights of heaven. Thus, on one hand, we have ability to protect ourselves. On the other, a victory that is complete. To see victory only when it is within the ken of the common herd is not the acme of excellence. Neither is it the acme of excellence if you fight and conquer, and the whole empire says, well done. To lift an autumn hair is no sign of great strength. To see the sun and moon is no sign of sharp sight. To hear the noise of thunder is no sign of a quick ear. What the ancients called a clever fighter is one who not only wins, but excels in winning with ease. Hence his victories bring him neither reputation for wisdom nor credit for courage. He wins his battles by making no mistakes. Making no mistakes is what establishes the certainty of victory, for it means conquering an enemy that is already defeated. Hence, the skillful fighter puts himself into a position which makes defeat impossible, and does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. Thus it is that in war, the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won, whereas he who is destined to defeat first fights and afterwards looks for victory. The consummate leader cultivates the moral law and strictly adheres to method and discipline. Thus it is in his power to control success. In respect of military method, we have, firstly, measurement, secondly, estimation of quantity, thirdly, calculation, fourthly, balancing of chances, fifthly, victory. Measurement owes its existence to earth, estimation of quantity to measurement, calculation to estimation of quantity, balancing of chances to calculation, and victory to balancing of chances. A victorious army opposed to a routed one is as a pound's weight placed in a scale against a single grain. The onrush of a conquering force is like the bursting of pent-up waters into a chasm 1,000 fathoms deep. Chapter 5. Energy. Sun Tzu said, the control of a large force is the same principle as the control of a few men. It is merely a question of dividing up their numbers. Fighting with a large army under your command is no wise different from fighting with a small one. It is merely a question of instituting signs and signals. To ensure that your whole host may withstand the brunt of the enemy's attack and remain unshaken, this is effected by maneuvers direct and indirect. that the impact of your army may be like a grindstone dashed against an egg. This is effected by the science of weak points and strong. In all fighting, the direct method may be used for joining battle, but indirect methods will be needed in order to secure victory. Indirect tactics, efficiently applied, are inexhaustible as heaven and earth, unending as the flow of rivers and streams. Like the sun and moon, they end, but to begin anew. Like the four seasons, they pass away to return once more. There are not more than 5 musical notes, yet the combinations of these 5 give rise to more melodies than can ever be heard. There are not more than 5 primary colors: blue, yellow, red, white, black. Yet in combination, they produce more hues than can ever be seen. There are not more than 5 cardinal tastes: sour, acrid, salt, sweet, bitter. Yet combinations of them yield more flavors than can ever be tasted. In battles, there are not more than 2 methods of attack, the direct and the indirect. Yet these 2 in combination give rise to an endless series of maneuvers. The direct and the indirect lead on to each other in turn. It is like moving in a circle. You never come to an end. Who can exhaust the possibilities of their combination? The onset of troops is like the rush of a torrent which will even roll stones along in its course. The quality of decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon which enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Therefore, the good fighter will be terrible in his onset and prompt in his decision. Energy may be likened to the bending of a crossbow, decision to the releasing of a trigger. Amid the turmoil and tumult of battle, there may be seeming disorder, and yet no real disorder at all. Amid confusion and chaos, your array may be without head or tail, yet it will be proof against defeat. Simulated disorder postulates perfect discipline. Simulated fear postulates courage. Simulated weakness postulates strength. Hiding order between the cloak of disorder is simply a question of subdivision. Concealing courage under a show of timidity presupposes a fund of latent energy. Masking strength with weakness is to be effected by tactical dispositions. Thus, one who is skillful at keeping the enemy on the move maintains deceitful appearances according to which the enemy will act. He sacrifices something that the enemy may snatch at. By holding out baits, he keeps him on the march. Then, with a body of picked men, he lies in wait for him. The clever combatant looks to the effect of combined energy and does not require too much from individuals. Hence his ability to pick out the right men and utilize combined energy. When he utilizes combined energy, his fighting men become, as it were, like unto rolling logs or stones. For it is in the nature of a log or a stone to remain motionless on level ground, and to move when on a slope, if four-cornered, to come to a standstill, but if round-shaped, to go rolling down. Thus the energy developed by good fighting men is as the momentum of a round stone rolled down a mountain thousands of feet in height. So much on the subject of energy. Chapter 6. Weak points and strong. Sun Tzu said, "Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to battle will arrive exhausted." Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. By holding out advantages to him, he can cause the enemy to approach of his own accord. Or, by inflicting damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near. If the enemy is taking his ease, he can harass him. If well supplied with food, he can starve him out. If quietly encamped, he can force him to move. Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. An army may march great distances without distress if it marches through country where the enemy is not. You can be sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places which are undefended. You can ensure the safety of your defense if you only hold positions that cannot be attacked. Hence, that general is skillful in attack whose opponent does not know what to defend. And he is skillful in defense whose opponent does not know what to attack. O divine art of subtlety and secrecy, through you we learn to be invisible, through you inaudible, and hence we can hold the enemy's fate in our hands. You may advance and be absolutely irresistible if you make for the enemy's weak points. You may retire and be safe for pursuit if your movements are more rapid than those of the enemy. If we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced to an engagement even though he be sheltered behind a high rampart and a deep ditch. All we need to do is attack some other place that he will be obliged to relieve. If we do not wish to fight, we can prevent the enemy from engaging us even though the lines of our encampment be merely traced out on the ground. All we need to do is to throw something odd and unaccountable in his way. By discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated while the enemy's must be divided. We can form a single united body while the enemy must split up into fractions. Hence, there will be a whole pitted against separate parts of a whole, which means that we shall be many to the enemy's few. And if we are able thus to attack an inferior force with a superior one, our opponents will be in dire straits. The spot where we intend to fight must not be made known, for then the enemy will have to prepare against a possible attack at several different points. And his forces being thus distributed in many directions, the numbers we shall have to face at any given point will be proportionately few. For should the enemy strengthen his van, he will weaken his rear. Should he strengthen his rear, he will weaken his van. Should he strengthen his left, he will weaken his right. Should he strengthen his right, he will weaken his left. If he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will everywhere be weak. Numerical weakness comes from having to prepare against possible attacks. Numerical strength from compelling our adversary to make these preparations against us. Knowing the place and the time of the coming battle, we may concentrate from the greatest distances in order to fight. But if neither time nor place be known, then the left wing will be impotent to succor the right equally impotent to succor the left, the van unable to relieve the rear, or the rear to support the van. How much more so if the furthest portions of the army are anything under 100 li apart, and even the nearest are separated by several li. Though according to my estimate, the soldiers away exceeded our own in number, that shall advantage them nothing in the matter of victory. I say then that victory can be achieved. Though the enemy be stronger in numbers, we may prevent him from fighting. Scheme so as to discover his plans and the likelihood of their success. Arouse him and learn the principle of his activity or inactivity. Force him to reveal himself so as to find out his vulnerable spots. Carefully compare the opposing army with your own, so that you may know where strength is superabundant and where it is deficient. In making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. Conceal your dispositions, and you will be safe from the prying of the subtlest spies, from the machinations of the wisest brains. How victory may be produced for them out of the enemy's own tactics, that is what the multitude cannot comprehend. All men can see the tactics whereby I conquer, but what none can see is the strategy out of which victory is evolved. Do not repeat the tactics which have gained you one victory, but let your methods be regulated by the infinite variety of circumstances. Military tactics are like unto water, for water in its natural course runs away from high places and hastens downwards. So in war, the way is to avoid what is strong and to strike at what is weak. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. The soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe whom he is facing. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. He who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent and thereby succeed in winning may be called a heaven-born captain. The 5 elements, water, fire, wood, metal, earth, are not always equally predominant. The 4 seasons make way for each other in turn. There are short days and long. The moon has its periods of waning and waxing. Chapter 7, Maneuvering. Sun Tzu said, "In war, the general receives his commands from the sovereign. Having collected an army and concentrated his forces, he must blend and harmonize the different elements thereof before pitching his camp. After that comes tactical maneuvering, than which there is nothing more difficult. The difficulty of tactical maneuvering consists in turning the devious into the direct and misfortune into gain. Thus, to take a long and circuitous route after enticing the enemy out of the way, and those starting after him to contrive to reach the goal before him, shows knowledge of the artifice of deviation. Maneuvering with an army is advantageous, with an undisciplined multitude, most dangerous. If you set a fully equipped army in march in order to snatch an advantage, the chances are that you will be too late. On the other hand, to detach a flying column for the purpose involves the sacrifice of its baggage and stores. Thus, if you order your men to roll up their buff coats and make forced marches without halting day or night, covering double the usual distance at a stretch, doing 100 li in order to wrest an advantage, the leaders of all your 3 divisions will fall into the hands of the enemy. The stronger men will be in front, the jaded ones will fall behind, and on this plan, only 1/10 of your army will reach its destination. If you march 50 li in order to outmaneuver the enemy, you will lose the leader of your first division, and only half your force will reach the goal. If you march 30 li with the same object, 2/3 of your army will arrive. We may take it then that an army without its baggage train is lost. Without provisions, it is lost. Without bases of supply, it is lost. We cannot enter into alliance until we are acquainted with the designs of our neighbors. We are not fit to lead an army on the march unless we are familiar with the face of the country, its mountains and forests, its pitfalls and precipices, its marshes and swamps. We shall be unable to turn natural advantage to account unless we make use of local guides. In war, practice dissimulation and you will succeed. Whether to concentrate or to divide your troops must be decided by circumstances. Let your rapidity be that of the wind, your compactness that of the forest. In raiding and plundering, be like fire. Immovability is like a mountain. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. When you plunder a countryside, let the spoil be divided amongst your men. When you capture new territory, cut it up into allotments for the benefit of the soldiery. Ponder and deliberate before you make a move. He will conquer who has learned the artifice of deviation. Such is the art of maneuvering. The Book of Army Management says, on the field of battle, the spoken word does not carry far enough. Hence the institution of gongs and drums. Nor can ordinary objects be seen clearly enough. Hence the institution of banners and flags. Gongs and drums, banners and flags are means whereby the ears and eyes of the host may be focused on one particular point. The host, thus forming a single united body, it is impossible either for the brave to advance alone or for the cowardly to retreat alone. This is the art of handling large masses of men. In night fighting, then, make much use of signal fires and drums, and in fighting by day of flags and banners, as a means of influencing the ears and eyes of your army. The whole army may be robbed of its spirit. A commander-in-chief may be robbed of his presence of mind. Now, a soldier's spirit is keenest in the morning. By noonday it has begun to flag, and in the evening his mind is bent only on returning to camp.
I
A
remember
clever general, therefore,
like being in the Marines, times where they just had us in the field, like had us just climbing mountains and shit with 90-pound packs on our backs. Like that shit was breaking us down, and like it was like they didn't give a fuck, like because they knew, like I don't know what the fuck they had planned, but with we went through a boot camp as far as Marines. I can't speak for Air Force, Navy, or Army, but the way they did, like that shit, it was like they overdid that shit. It was plenty of times where shit, I just wanted to go back home, like just wanted to give up, because I'm like, man, this shit too much. But mentally, like they always say, is 90% mental, 10% physical. I always thought it was the other way, but I was always good mentally. So that's what got me through boot camp, and even in the military period, it was my mind like that made sure I didn't get brainwashed and think like they wanted me to think. Like made sure I kept my own mind. So the art of war, like you would say, like how does this book like this book was written in the early 1900s, probably before then. Like, how does that equate to 2022, especially when you're not being in the military? Like, honestly, I don't know. I just thought this was a cool. Like, this ain't my first time reading this book, but I read it like it was because I was in the military. So when I seen it yesterday, I'm like, hey, that's a good book to read. I mean, reread. But now when I'm listening to it, I'm like, this ain't got nothing to do with like the average person. Like the average person won't have to worry about the art of war. But if you're a spiritual person, if you're a person who got some type of money, success, you got a business, the art of war is very important. Like, cause you're gonna deal with you're gonna deal with some shit. Like, so I've been through a lot of shit, just physically, spiritually, emotionally. Like, when motherfuckers just trying to attack me, so I had to learn how to like protect myself and move how I move. Like shit, move in silence. Don't let everybody know what you're doing. Like shit, just I done like a lot of lessons. And reading books have helped me with that. Even though sometimes a lot of books I've read, it went over my head because it was like too advanced for me to be reading it. But every time I went back, I learned. I just kept learning, and finally it clicked. Like it was like I got my understanding. So this, I probably read this 2 times so far. So I understand it because I was in the military, but at the same time, this is a different time and age. Like they talking about early 1500s, like third. Oh no, let's say the 5th century BC. Like so, this is like before a long time ago. I can't say what time. I mean, what time, but if it was before Jesus Christ was born, like that was a long ass time ago.
Avoids an army when the spirit is keen, but attacks it when it is sluggish and inclined to return. This is the art of studying moods,
Don't mind me eating
disciplined
on
and
camera.
calm,
I
to
haven't
await the
ate today, so
appearance of disorder and hubbub amongst the enemy. This is the art of retaining self-possession, to be near the goal while the enemy is still far from it, to wait at ease while the enemy is toiling and struggling, to be well fed while the enemy is famished. This is the art of
you gotta be
husbanding
well
one's
fed.
strength, to refrain from intercepting an enemy whose banners are in perfect order, to refrain from attacking an army drawn up in calm and confident array. This is the art of studying circumstances. It is a military axiom not to advance uphill against the enemy, nor to oppose him when he comes downhill. Do not pursue an enemy who simulates flight. Do not attack soldiers whose temper is keen. Do not swallow bait offered by the enemy. Do not interfere with an army that is returning home. When you surround an army, leave an outlet free. Do not press a desperate foe too hard. Such is the art of warfare. Chapter 8: Variation in Tactics. Sun Tzu said, "In war, the general receives his commands from the sovereign, collects his army, and concentrates his forces. When in difficult country, do not encamp. In country where high roads intersect, join hands with your allies. Do not linger in dangerously isolated positions. In hemmed-in situations, you must resort to stratagem. In desperate position, you must fight. There are roads which must not be followed, armies which must not be attacked, towns which must be besieged. positions which must not be contested, commands of the sovereign which must not be obeyed. The general who thoroughly understands the advantages that accompany variation of tactics knows how to handle his troops. The general who does not understand these may be well acquainted with the configuration of the country, yet he will not be able to turn his knowledge to practical account. So, the student of war who is unversed in the art of war of varying his plans, even though he be acquainted with the 5 advantages, will fail to make the best use of his men. Hence, in the wise leader's plans, considerations of advantage and of disadvantage will be blended together. If our expectation of advantage be tempered in this way, we may succeed in accomplishing the essential part of our schemes. If, on the other hand, in the midst of difficulties, we are always ready to seize an advantage, we may extricate ourselves from misfortune, reduce the hostile chiefs by inflicting damage on them, and make trouble for them, and keep them constantly engaged, hold out specious allurements, and make them rush to any given point. The art of war teaches us to rely not on the likelihood of the enemy's not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him, not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable. There are 5 dangerous faults which may affect a general. 1. Recklessness, which leads to destruction. 2. Cowardice, which leads to capture. 3. A hasty temper, which can be provoked by insults. 4. A delicacy of honor, which is sensitive to shame. 5. Over-solicitude for his men, which exposes him to worry and trouble. These are the 5 besetting sins of a general, ruinous to the conduct of war. When an army is overthrown and its leader slain, the cause will surely be found among these 5 dangerous faults. Let them be subject of meditation. Chapter 9. The Army on the March. Sun Tzu said, "We come now to the question of encamping the army and observing signs of the enemy. Pass quickly over mountains and keep in the neighborhood of valleys. Camp in high places, facing the sun. Do not climb heights in order to fight. So much for mountain warfare. After crossing a river, you should get far away from it. When an invading force crosses a river in its onward march, do not advance to meet it midstream. It will be best to let half the army get across and then deliver your attack. If you are anxious to fight, you should not go to meet the invader near a river which he has to cross. Moor your craft higher up than the enemy and facing the sun. Do not move upstream to meet the enemy. So much for river warfare. In crossing salt marshes, your sole concern should be to get over them quickly without any delay. If forced to fight in a salt marsh, you should have water and grass near you and get your back to a clump of trees. So much for operations in salt marshes. In dry, level country, take up an easily accessible position with rising ground to your right and on your rear, so that the danger may be in front and safety lie behind. So much for campaigning in flat country. These are 4 useful branches of military knowledge which enabled the Yellow Emperor to vanquish 4 several sovereigns. All armies prefer high ground to low and sunny places to dark. If you are careful with your men and camp on hard ground, the army will be free from disease of every kind, and this will spell victory. When you come to a hill or a bank, occupy the sunny side with the slope on your right rear. Thus, you will at once act for the benefit of your soldiers and utilize the natural advantages of the ground. When, in consequence of heavy rains up country, a river which you wish to ford is swollen and flecked with foam, you must wait till it subsides. Country in which there are precipitous cliffs with torrents running between, deep natural hollows, confined places, tangled thickets, quagmires and crevices, should be left with all possible speed and not approached. While we keep away from such places, we should get the enemy to approach them. While we face them, we should let the enemy have them on its rear. If in the neighborhood of your camp there should be any hilly country, ponds surrounded by aquatic grass, hollow basins filled with reeds, or woods with thick undergrowth, they must be carefully routed out and searched. For these are places where men in ambush or insidious spies are likely to be lurking. When the enemy is close at hand and remains quiet, he is relying on the natural strength of his position. When he keeps aloof and tries to provoke a battle, he is anxious for the other side to advance. If his place of encampment is easy of access, he is tendering a bait. Movement amongst the trees of a forest shows that the enemy is advancing. The appearance of a number of screens in the midst of thick grass means that the enemy wants to make us suspicious. The rising of birds in their flight is the sign of an ambuscade. Startled beasts indicate that a sudden attack is coming. When there is dust rising in a high column, it is the sign of chariots advancing. When the dust is low, but spread over a wide area, it betokens the approach of infantry. When it branches out in different directions, it shows that parties have been sent to collect firewood. A few clouds of dust moving to and fro signify that the army is encamping. Humble words and increased preparations are signs that the enemy is about to advance. Violent language and driving forward as if to attack are signs that he will retreat. When the light chariots come out first and take up a position on the wings, it is a sign that the enemy is forming for battle. Peace proposals, unaccompanied by a sworn covenant, indicate a plot. When there is much running about and the soldiers fall into rank, it means that the critical moment has come. When some are seen advancing and some retreating, it is a lure. When the soldiers stand leaning on their spears, they are faint from want of food. If those who are sent to draw water begin by drinking themselves, the army is suffering from thirst. If the enemy sees an advantage to be gained and makes no effort to secure it, the soldiers are exhausted. If birds gather on any spot, it is unoccupied. Clamor by night betokens nervousness. If there is a disturbance in the camp, the general's authority is weak. If the banners and flags are shifted about, sedition is afoot. If the officers are angry, it means the men are weary. When an army feeds its horses with grain and kills its cattle for food, and when the men do not hang their cooking pots over the campfires, showing that they will not return to their tents, you may know that they are determined to fight to the death. The sign of men whispering together in small knots or speaking in subdued tones points to disaffection amongst the rank and file. Too frequent rewards signify that the enemy is at the end of his resources. Too many punishments betray a condition of dire distress. To begin by bluster, but afterwards to take fright at the enemy's numbers, shows a supreme lack of intelligence. When envoys are sent with compliments in their mouths, it is a sign that the enemy wishes for a truce. If the enemy's troops march up angrily and remain facing ours for a long time without either joining battle or taking themselves off again, the situation is one that demands great vigilance and circumspection. If our troops are no more in numbers than the enemy, that is amply sufficient. It only means that no direct attack can be made. What we can do is simply to concentrate all our available strength, keep a close watch on the enemy, and obtain reinforcements. He who exercises no forethought but makes light of his opponents is sure to be captured by them. If soldiers are punished before they have grown attached to you, they will not prove submissive, and, unless submissive, then will be practically useless. If, when soldiers have become attached to you, punishments are not enforced, they will still be useless. Therefore, soldiers must be treated in the first instance with humanity, but kept under control by means of iron discipline. This is a certain road to victory. If in training soldiers, commands are habitually enforced, the army will be well disciplined. If not, its discipline will be bad. If a general shows confidence in his men, but always insists on his orders being obeyed, the gain will be mutual. Chapter 10, Terrain. Sun Tzu said, "We may distinguish 6 kinds of terrain, to wit, 1. Accessible ground. 2. Entangling ground. 3. Temporizing ground. 4. Narrow passes. 5. Precipitous heights. 6. Positions at a great distance from the enemy. Ground which can be freely traversed by both sides is called accessible. With regard to ground of this nature, be before the enemy in occupying the raised and sunny spots, and carefully guard your line of supplies. Then you will be able to fight with advantage. Ground which can be abandoned but is hard to reoccupy is called entangling. From a position of this sort, if the enemy is unprepared, you may sally forth and defeat him. But if the enemy is prepared for your coming and you fail to defeat him, then, return being impossible, disasters will ensue. When the position is such that neither side will gain by making the first move, it is called temporizing ground. In a position of this sort, even though the enemy should offer us an attractive bait, it will be advisable not to stir forth, but rather to retreat, thus enticing the enemy in his turn. Then, when part of his army has come out, we may deliver our attack with advantage. With regard to narrow passes, if you can occupy them first, let them be strongly garrisoned and await the advent of the enemy. Should the army forestall you in occupying a pass, do not go after him if the pass is fully garrisoned, but only if it is weakly garrisoned. With regard to precipitous heights, if you are beforehand with your adversary, you should occupy the raised and sunny spots, and there wait for him to come up. If the enemy has occupied them before you, do not follow him, but retreat and try to entice him away. If you are situated at a great distance from the enemy, and the strength of the two armies is equal, it is not easy to provoke a battle, and fighting will be to your disadvantage. These 6 are the principles connected with earth. The general who has attained a responsible post must be careful to study them. Now an army is exposed to 6 several calamities, not arising from natural causes, but from faults for which the general is responsible. These are 1. Flight. 2. Insubordination. 3. Collapse. 4. Ruin. 5. Disorganization. 6. Rout. Other conditions being equal, if one force is hurled against another 10 times its size, the result will be the flight of the former. When the common soldiers are too strong and their officers too weak, the result is insubordination. When the officers are too strong and the common soldiers too weak,
in the Marines, we look at officers, like the people who went to college, as like nobody. I mean, they got ranked. You're supposed to salute your officers no matter what, when, how long they've been in. But we don't start respecting officers until they get to like that major, that colonel. Like, of course, you're gonna respect the generals, but like the lieutenants, maybe the captain, or like the sergeant, corporal, like we don't really give too much respect. Well, we did not in my unit. I can't say that's for every unit, but when you got more soldiers, well, we wasn't soldiers, we were Marines. Like when you got more Marines, and we're all, of course, like got our own platoons, got our own units, sections, and you only got like 10 officers, and it's like damn near 1,000 people in the unit. Like, shit, of course, you're not gonna respect no officer, but I have to do what they said, nonetheless.
The result is collapse. When the higher officers are angry and insubordinate, and on meeting the enemy give battle on their own account from a feeling of resentment.
See, like this book is talking about, like when people go into battle, or when they used to go into battle, like the people who won are the ones, of course, who was well prepared. Like their plans was well thought out. Their people were all on one accord. All the soldiers were like thinking as one. The people who lost, or like the army that lost, it was usually because they was poor plan, fatigued, like insubordinate, like not getting along. Like it was always a mess. So even it doesn't matter how small your army is or how big your army is, as long as like you playing the right way, you study these type of laws, you always like and like Afghanistan shit. Okay, this could be used honestly.
The commander-in-chief can tell whether or no he is in a position to fight. The result is ruin. When the general is weak and without authority, when his orders are not clear and distinct, when there are no fixed duties assigned to officers and men, and the ranks are formed in a slovenly, haphazard manner, the result is utter disorganization. When a general, unable to estimate the enemy's strength, allows an inferior force to engage a larger one, or hurls a weak detachment against a powerful one, and neglects to place picked soldiers in the front rank, the result must be rout. There are 6 ways of courting defeat, which must be carefully noted by the general who has attained a responsible post. The natural formation of the country is the soldier's best ally, but a power of estimating the adversary, of controlling the forces of victory, and of shrewdly calculating difficulties, dangers, and distances constitutes the test of a great general. He who knows these things, and in fighting puts his knowledge into practice, will win his battles. He who knows them not, nor practices them, will surely be defeated. If fighting is sure to result in victory, then you must fight, even though the ruler forbid it. If fighting will not result in victory, then you must not fight, even at the ruler's bidding. The general who advances without coveting fame and retreats without fearing disgrace, whose only thought is to protect his country and do good service for his sovereign, is the jewel of the kingdom. Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death. If, however, you are indulgent, but unable to make your authority felt, kind-hearted, but unable to enforce your commands, and incapable, moreover, of quelling disorder, then your soldiers must be likened to spoiled children.
Basically, before you can go to war, you have to conquer the war within your army. Like you got to get everybody on one accord, and that's not easy, especially when you got men with egos. Like so, to like go to war in like the 5th century, like man, I can't even imagine. Actually, I can because I'm pretty sure I had past lives back then. But you had to be well planned, like shit. And things is different. Like today is way different than back then. Like it was easier to get everybody on one accord. But when you got people like Alexander the Great, people like Genghis Khan, even the Persians, fucking shit, 300. I don't know if that was a. I mean, yes, the Spartans is real, but I don't know how they really were. I know it was more than 300. Like they was well planned people. Egypt, Africa, they never had like no organized army like that. So it was easy for just everybody to come in and just take from Egypt because we wasn't on that like shit. We wasn't trying to like just conquer everybody like shit. We have like wars within like different like it was countries within the continent of Africa, of course. Like so, you have Egypt versus Kush, or there's some other ones. Like I can't really think of it, but still, the white people, Chinese people, they was on that shit, on that plan and shit, like attacking, all conquering, all of that shit.
Children, they are useless for any practical purpose. If we know that our own men are in a condition to attack, but are unaware that the enemy is not open to attack, we have gone only halfway towards victory. If we know that the enemy is open to attack, but are unaware that our own men are not in a condition to attack, we have only gone halfway towards victory. If we know that the enemy is open to attack, and also know that our men are in a condition to attack, but are unaware that the nature of the ground makes fighting impracticable, we have still gone only halfway towards victory. Hence the experienced soldier, once in motion, is never bewildered. Once he has broken camp, he is never at a loss. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. If you know heaven and know earth, you may make your victory complete. Chapter 11. The 9 Situations. Sun Tzu said, the art of war recognizes 9 varieties of ground. 1. Dispersive ground. 2. Facile ground. 3. Contentious ground. 4. Open ground. 5. Ground of intersecting highways. 6. Serious ground. 7. Difficult ground. 8. Hemmed in ground. 9. Desperate ground. When a chieftain is fighting in his own territory, it is dispersive ground. When he has penetrated into hostile territory, but to no great distance, it is facile ground. Ground the possession of which imports great advantage to either side is contentious ground. Ground on which each side has liberty of movement is open ground. Ground which forms the key to 3 contiguous states, so that he who occupies it first has most of the empire at his command, is a ground of intersecting highways. When an army has penetrated into the heart of a hostile country, leaving a number of fortified cities in its rear, it is serious ground. Mountain forests, rugged steeps, marshes and fens, all country that is hard to traverse, this is difficult ground. Ground which is reached through narrow gorges, and from which we can only retire by tortuous paths, so that a small number of the enemy would suffice to crush a large body of our men. This is hemmed in ground. Ground on which we can only be saved from destruction by fighting without delay is desperate ground. On dispersive ground, therefore, fight not. On facile ground, halt not. On contentious ground, attack not. On open ground, do not try to block the enemy's way. On the ground of intersecting highways, join hands with your allies. On serious ground, gather in plunder. In difficult ground, keep steadily on the march. On hemmed-in ground, resort to stratagem. On desperate ground, fight. Those who were called skillful leaders of old knew how to drive a wedge between the enemy's front and rear, to prevent cooperation between his large and small divisions, to hinder the good troops from rescuing the bad, the officers from rallying their men. When the enemy's men were united, they managed to keep them in disorder. When it was to their advantage, they made a forward move. When otherwise, they stopped still. If asked how to cope with a great host of the enemy in orderly array and on the point of marching to the attack, I should say, begin by seizing something which your opponent holds dear. Then he will be amenable to your will. Rapidity is the essence of war. Take advantage of the enemy's unreadiness. Make your way by unexpected routes, and attack unguarded spots. The following are the principles to be observed by an invading force. The further you penetrate into a country, the greater will be the solidarity of your troops, and thus the defenders will not prevail against you. Make forays in fertile country in order to supply your army with food. Carefully study the well-being of your men and do not overtax them. Concentrate your energy and hoard your strength. Keep your army continually on the move and devise unfathomable plans. Throw your soldiers into positions whence there is no escape, and they will prefer death to flight. If they will face death, there is nothing they may not achieve. Officers and men alike will put forward their uttermost strength. Soldiers, when in desperate straits, lose the sense of fear. If there is no place of refuge, they will stand firm. If they are in hostile country, they will show a stubborn front. If there is no help for it, they will fight hard. Thus, without waiting to be marshaled, the soldiers will be constantly on the qui-vive, without waiting to be asked. They will do your will without restrictions. They will be faithful without giving orders. They can be trusted. Prohibit the taking of omens and do away with superstitious doubts. Then, until death itself comes, no calamity need be feared. If our soldiers are not overburdened with money, it is not because they have a distaste for riches. If their lives are not unduly long, it is not because they are disinclined to longevity. On the day they are ordered out to battle, your soldiers may weep, those sitting up bedewing their garments, and those lying down letting the tears run down their cheeks. But let them once be brought to bay, and they will display the courage of a Chu or a Kui. The skillful tactician may be likened to the Shuaijian. Now the Shuaijian is a snake that is found in the Jiung Mountains. Strike at its head, and you will be attacked by its tail. Strike at its tail, and you will be attacked by its head. Strike at its middle, and you will be attacked by the head and tail, both. Asked if an army can be made to imitate the Shuaijian, I should answer yes, for the men of Wu and the men of Yue are enemies. Yet if they are crossing a river in the same boat and are caught by a storm, they will come to each other's assistance, just as the left hand helps the right. Hence, it is not enough to put one's trust in the tethering of horses and the burying of chariot wheels in the ground. The principle on which to manage an army is to set up one standard of courage which all must reach. How to make the best of both strong and weak, that is a question involving the proper use of ground. Thus, the skillful general conducts his army just as though he were leading a single man, willy-nilly, by the hand. It is the business of a general to be quiet and thus ensure secrecy, upright and just, and thus maintain order. He must be able to mystify his officers and men by false reports and appearances, and thus keep them in total ignorance. By altering his arrangements and changing his plans, he keeps the enemy without definite knowledge. By shifting his camp and taking circuitous routes, he prevents the enemy from anticipating his purpose. At the critical moment, the leader of an army acts like one who has climbed up a height and then kicks away the ladder behind him. He carries his men deep into hostile territory before he shows his hand. He burns his boats and breaks his cooking pots. Like a shepherd driving a flock of sheep, he drives his men this way and that, and nothing knows whither he is going. To muster his host and bring it into danger, this may be termed the business of the general. The different measures suited to the 9 varieties of ground, the expediency of aggressive or defensive tactics, and the fundamental laws of human nature. These are things that must most certainly be studied. When invading hostile territory, the general principle is that penetrating deeply brings cohesion. Penetrating but a short way means dispersion. When you leave your own country behind and take your army across neighborhood territory, you find yourself on critical ground. Where there are means of communication on all 4 sides, the ground is one of intersecting highways. When you penetrate deeply into a country, it is serious ground. When you penetrate but a little way, it is facile ground. When you have your enemy's strongholds on your rear and narrow passes in front, it is hemmed-in ground. When there is no place of refuge at all, it is desperate ground. Therefore, on dispersive ground, I would inspire my men with unity of purpose. On facile ground, I would see that there is close connection between all parts of my army. On contentious ground, I would hurry up my rear. On open ground, I would keep a vigilant eye on my defenses. On ground of intersecting highways, I would consolidate my alliances. On serious ground, I would try to ensure a continuous stream of supplies. On difficult ground, I would keep pushing on along the road. On hemmed-in ground, I would block any way of retreat. On desperate ground, I would proclaim to my soldiers the hopelessness of saving their lives. For it is the soldier's disposition to offer an obstinate resistance when surrounded, to fight hard when he cannot help himself, and to obey promptly when he has fallen into danger. We cannot enter into alliance with the neighboring princes until we are acquainted with their designs. We are not fit to lead an army on the march unless we are familiar with the face of the country, its mountains and forests, its pitfalls and precipices, its marshes and swamps. We shall be unable to turn natural advantages to account unless we make use of local guides. To be ignored of any one of the following 4 or 5 principles does not befit a warlike prince. When a warlike prince attacks a powerful state, his generalship shows itself in preventing the concentration of the enemy's forces. He overawes his opponents, and their allies are prevented from joining against him. Hence he does not strive to ally himself with all and sundry, nor does he foster the power of other states. He carries out his own secret designs, keeping his antagonists in awe. Thus he is able to capture their cities and overthrow their kingdoms. Bestow rewards without regard to rule. Issue orders without regard to previous arrangements, and you will be able to handle a whole army as though you had to do it with but a single man. Confront your soldiers with the deed itself. Never let them know your design. When the outlook is bright, bring it before their eyes, but tell them nothing when the situation is gloomy. Place your army in deadly peril, and it will survive. Plunge it into desperate straits, and it will come off in safety. For it is precisely when a force has fallen into harm's way that it is capable of striking a blow for victory. Success in warfare is gained by carefully accommodating ourselves to the enemy's purpose. By persistently hanging on to the enemy's flank, we shall succeed in the long run in killing the commander-in-chief. This is called ability to accomplish a thing by sheer cunning. On the day that you take up your command, block the frontier passes, destroy the official tallies, and stop the passage of all emissaries. Be stern in the council chamber so that you may control the situation. If the enemy leaves the door open, you must rush in. Forestall your opponent by seizing what he holds dear, and subtly contrive to time his arrival on the ground. Walk in the path defined by rule and accommodate yourself to the enemy until you can fight a decisive battle. At first, then, exhibit the coyness of a maiden until the enemy gives you an opening. Afterwards, emulate the rapidity of a running hare, and it will be too late for the enemy to oppose you. Chapter 12. The Attack by Fire. Sun Tzu said, there are 5 ways of attacking with fire. The first is to burn the soldiers in their camp. The second is to burn stores. The third is to burn baggage trains. The fourth is to burn arsenals and magazines. The fifth is to hurl dropping fire amongst the enemy. In order to carry out an attack, we must have means available. The material for raising fire should always be kept in readiness. There is a proper season for making attacks with fire, and special days for starting a conflagration. The proper season is when the weather is very dry. The special days are those when the moon is in the constellations of the sieve, the wall, the wing, or the crossbar. For these 4 are all days of rising wind. In attacking with fire, one should be prepared to meet 5 possible developments. When fire breaks out inside the enemy's camp, respond at once with an attack from without. If there is an outbreak of fire, but the enemy's soldiers remain quiet, bide your time and do not attack. When the force of the flames has reached its height, follow up with an attack, if that is practicable. If not, stay where you are. If it is possible to make an assault with fire from without, do not wait for it to break out within, but deliver your attack at a favorable moment. When you start a fire, be to windward of it. Do not attack from the leeward. A wind that rises in the daytime lasts long, but the night breeze soon falls. In every army, the 5 developments connected with fire must be known, the movements of the stars calculated, and a watch kept for the proper days. Hence, those who use fire as an aid to the attack show intelligence. Those who use water as an aid to the attack gain an accession of strength. By means of water, an enemy may be intercepted, but not robbed of all his belongings. Unhappy is the fate of one who tries to win his battles and succeed in his attacks without cultivating the spirit of enterprise, for the result is a waste of time and general stagnation. Hence the saying, the enlightened ruler lays his plans well, the good general cultivates his resources. Move not until you see an advantage. Use not your troops unless there is something to be gained. Fight not unless the position is critical. No ruler should put troops into the field merely to gratify his own spleen. No general should fight a battle simply out of pique. If it is to your advantage, make a forward move. If not, stay where you are. Anger may in time change to gladness. Vexation may be succeeded by content. But a kingdom that has once been destroyed can never come back again into being, nor can the dead ever be brought back to life. Hence the enlightened ruler is heedful, and the good general full of caution. This is the way to keep a country at peace and an army intact. Chapter 13. The Use of Spies. Sun Tzu said, raising a host of 100...
This the last couple minutes, but the use of spies, you gotta be aware of the spies that's around you. Like, there's some motherfuckers around you that's just watching you, plotting on you, giving information to other people, and you think they all buddy. They could be family. They could be your closest friends. They could be co-workers, relationship. There's some spies around you that you need to make sure you're using your discernment at all times with all people. Meaning, like, when a motherfucker come to you or talk to you, the first thought, or when you think of a person, the first thought that pop up in your head, it can either be a good thought or a bad thought. If this person is a close friend of yours and you get bad thoughts about your friend, like, it's obvious because your friend probably owes some fuck shit. Same as what with anybody else. So, I can finish.
100,000 men and marching them great distances entails heavy loss on the people and a drain on the resources of the state. The daily expenditure will amount to 1,000 ounces of silver. There will be commotion at home and abroad, and men will drop down exhausted on the highways. As many as 700,000 families will be impeded in their labor. Hostile armies may face each other for years, striving for the victory which is decided in a single day. This being so, to remain in ignorance of the enemy's condition simply because one grudges the outlay of 100 ounces of silver in honors and emoluments is the height of inhumanity. One who acts thus is no leader of men, no present help to his sovereign, no master of victory. Thus, what enables the wise sovereign and the good general to strike and conquer and achieve things beyond the reach of ordinary men is foreknowledge. Now, this foreknowledge cannot be elicited from spirits. It cannot be obtained inductively from experience, nor by any deductive calculation. Knowledge of the enemy's dispositions can only be obtained from other men. Hence the use of spies, of whom there are 5 classes. 1. Local spies. 2. Inward spies. 3. Converted spies. 4. Doomed spies. 5. Surviving spies. When these 5 kinds of spy are all at work, none can discover the secret system. This is called divine manipulation of the threads. It is the sovereign's most precious faculty. Having local spies means employing the services of the inhabitants of a district. Having inward spies, making use of officials of the enemy. Having converted spies, getting hold of the enemy's spies and using them for our own purposes. Having doomed spies, doing certain things openly for purposes of deception and allowing our spies to know of them and report them to the enemy. Surviving spies, finally, are those who bring back news from the enemy's camp.
Shit, there ain't too many of
Hence,
the
it is
survivor
that
spies.
which none in the whole army are more intimate relations to be maintained than with spies. None should be more liberally rewarded. In no other business should greater secrecy be preserved. Spies cannot be usefully employed without a certain intuitive sagacity. They cannot be properly managed without benevolence and straightforwardness. Without subtle ingenuity of mind, one cannot make certain of the truth of their reports. Be subtle, and use your spies for every kind of business. If a secret piece of news is divulged by a spy before the time is ripe, he must be put to death, together with the man to whom the secret was told. Whether the object be to crush an army, to storm a city, or to assassinate an individual, it is always necessary to begin by finding out the names of the attendants, the aides de camp, and doorkeepers, and sentries of the general in command. Our spies must be commissioned to ascertain these. The enemy's spies, who have come to spy on us, must be sought out, tempted with bribes, led away, and comfortably housed. Thus they will become converted spies and available for our service. It is through the information brought by the converted spy that we are able to acquire and employ local and inward spies. It is owing to his information again that we can cause the doomed spy to carry false tidings to the enemy. Lastly, it is by his information that the surviving spy can be used on appointed occasions. The end and aim of spying in all its 5 varieties is knowledge of the enemy, and this knowledge can only be derived in the first instance from the converted spy. Hence it is essential that the converted spy be treated with the utmost liberality. Of old, the rise of the Yin dynasty was due to Ai Chi, who had served under the Hsia. Likewise, the rise of the Chou dynasty was due to Liu Ya, who had served under the Yin. Hence, it is only the enlightened ruler and the wise general who will use the highest intelligence of the army for purposes of spying, and thereby they achieve great results. Spies are a most important element in warfare because on them depends an army's ability to move.
Well, that was the end of that book. Like I said, that was a quick one. It's only one person. Well, I only can see is one person in here. I don't know how many people in here. But like I said, that book was important for me because I was kind of getting like thoughts and like just how to operate and move as I grow. Like I'm looking at my YouTube channel and like the people who come every day. Like that's y'all part of my army. Like I ain't gonna say I'm the general, but I was in the military, so just going off that term, I'm the general. Like so, then you got lieutenants, captains, sergeants, and beyond. Like so, as I grow in rank, as I evolve on this motherfucker, shit, we gonna be taking over the internet. Wow, for real, we really about to take over the internet with this. So, I think tomorrow I want to listen to the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. That's a 5-hour book. Honestly, we could start today, or like I'm thinking about like just going live like multiple times a day, like because I could be going live as soon as I get up, but I don't. I'd be being lazy. Actually, I just be checking my YouTube shit, comments and shit. So, but I think I'm gonna start going live twice a day, like so, in the morning, and then in the evening time, so I can like build up my watch time hours that way. So, but another thing I want to do is listen to the Bible as an audio book. Even though I'm not a religious person, I'm not a Christian. That book does have important information in it that everybody can use. And I'm gonna decipher the Bible. That's what it's gonna be called, deciphering the Bible. The question is, do I want to play the Bible overnight? Like, oh no. Or do I want to like get on here and like do a Bible series? That's 66 books, so that's 66 days. Dang, I'm pretty sure I can do it because plan on being on YouTube every single day. So whether we listening to the Bible, like it's still gonna take. I need something to take up the time. I need content, more content. Especially I need content that ain't gonna get copyrighted. This book is not gonna get copyrighted because it was published before 1925. Like so, that's what I'm kind of looking for. Like older books, not too much of the new ones, because those are the ones that get me copyrighted. So, pretty sure I can't get copyrighted off playing the Bible. I shouldn't, and if I do, like that's kind of fucked up. But I do want to listen to the Bible so I can decipher it as I listen to it, like as a whole. I've never read the Bible from front to back in the sitting. Well, of course not in one sitting or one day, but I've never read it from front to back. I probably read like multiple books in there, like, but I don't think I read all the books. So I don't know. This might be one of those things where some of them books be playing overnight. Like so, I'm gonna start. I don't know when I'm gonna start that, but like I said, I do want to listen to the meditations. Actually, we could start that today. I ain't gonna get off here early. Fuck that shit. We gonna go a little longer. Like shit. It's now more people started coming in, and I used to start at 8:30, so more it's people who come on still around that time. Like so, I don't want to get off the live. And I'm like, dang, I missed the live. Like so, we gonna listen to the meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And it's not really a book, but it's a bunch of game. Like Marcus Aurelius was an emperor in Rome. Like and he was a philosopher, so he was also a king. Like I mean, well, the emperor is a king, but anybody who's seen the Gladiator in the beginning with Russell Crowe, uh, Marcus Aurelius was the king. Like he was fighting for. Like so, he has these books, well, not books, but he has notes basically that he wrote himself. Like, okay, I just turned Christian, listen to some Jesus quote, haha. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with being Christian. Like, that's why I said I want to listen to the Bible because it got hella game in it. Like, you supposed to follow Jesus. Like Christians, I don't know. Some people, not Christians, but woke people, conscious people. Some of them be like, "Fuck Jesus. Jesus ain't real." Some people like Jesus was black, but overall, you supposed to follow Jesus. You supposed to be exactly like Jesus. Jesus was a person who was instantly manifesting everything in his life because he had those type of beliefs. He walked. He believed. He was walking on water because he had that faith. Like literally, ain't nobody else got that kind of faith on this planet. Like so, you want to get to the level of Jesus Christ consciously. It's a thing called Christ consciousness in like spirituality. So, like you want to get to that level. Like I'm trying to get to that level, like to where I can instantly manifest some shit. Say something, and it be there right there. Like so. Until I get there, I need to be following Jesus. Shit. So I need to be listening or listening to the not the whole. I don't need to listen to the whole Bible, but I know the Bible got game in it, and there's some controversial things in the Bible like that I want to go over too. So that's gonna be soon. But I'm about to play this book, the Meditations. But hey, shout out to you, Mr. Everest, being a Christian. What was you before you was a Christian though? Yeah, like for real. Like I believe Jesus was a real person who was spiritual. He wasn't a Christian because it wasn't no he ain't had no religion. It was just him. They made it a religion. Like basically made a religion to surround him, like to follow him. Like but him, he like you said, he only had 12 disciples. Like so that's who was following him while he was spreading the message of like believing in like his father, like the spiritual. You was a Buddhist. I've like studied some of Buddhist stuff, so I fuck with it all. I'm just not I'm not a Christian, not a Buddhist, not a Muslim. I ain't nothing but me. I'm like Jesus. I'm literally like Jesus. Jesus was not following no type of religion. Like, he was he knew who he was, and he wasn't tempted by nothing, by lusts, by the devil. Like, Jesus was a real one. So I had to go through the stage, and when I first woke up, to where I was like, yeah, Jesus ain't real. Cause I'm like, well, I wouldn't never say he wasn't real off the back. I would always say I wasn't here to know if he was real or not. Like so, but when I just kept growing up on my journey, like you understand, like real or not, like if you read the Bible and read about him, he was the perfect person. You want to be like that. You want to get there. He was teaching compassion. Exactly, like his message was the right message. So shit, it's like he came here and he lived out his purpose. Only thing I don't like about that shit is like the whole sacrifice. But he knew he was gonna, like he knew all that was gonna happen. But still, overall, it's always a spy in your fucking circle. Like I ain't got no circle, but I ain't gonna say it's always one in your circle, but it's always a spy around. He ain't gotta be in your circle or not. It could be somebody who's watching from afar and seeing you grow and evolve, and like they over here telling somebody else, probably giving bad information too. Like you know how people is. Like so, watch out for them spies. Watch out for the Judases, the Brutus, like those type of betraying motherfuckers. Like so, hey, we about to check out this Marcus Aurelius meditations.
The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Translation by George Long. Narrated by Robin Homer. Book 1. Debts and Lessons. 1. From my grandfather Verus I learned good morals and the government of my temper. 2. From the reputation and remembrance of my father, modesty and a manly character.
Actually, let me pause it, because the person who did this book, like they personally did this, like read this. So I ain't trying to get copyrighted off they shit. So let me find another meditations, because that should be serious. Good thing I read that. Damn, this was 6 hours. This was 4 hours. Trying to go to the one with the lowest time.
The Meditations of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antoninus by Marcus Aurelius, translated by George
Make sure you
Crystal,
give this video a thumbs up if you haven't
1888
already.
through
Really appreciate it.
1944. Book 1. I learned from my grandfather Verus to use good manners and to put restraint on anger. In the famous memory of my father, I had a pattern of modesty and manliness. Of my mother, I learned to be pious and generous, to keep myself not only from evil deeds, but even from evil thoughts, and to live with a simplicity which is far from customary among the rich. I owe it to my great-grandfather that I did not attend public lectures and discussions, but had good and able teachers at home. And I owe him also the knowledge that for things of this nature a man should count no expense too great. My tutor taught me not to favor either green or blue at the chariot races, nor in the contests of gladiators to be a supporter either of light or heavy armed. He taught me also to endure labor, not to need many things, to serve myself without troubling others, not to intermeddle in the affairs of others, and not easily to listen to slanders against them. Of Diognetus I had the lesson not to busy myself about vain things, not to credit the great professions of such as pretend to work wonders, or of sorcerers about their charms, and their expelling of demons and the like, not to keep quails for fighting or
Y'all know what I might
divination,
have to do?
nor
What
to
I
run
don't want to
after
do
such
though? Let me
things,
pause this.
to suffer freedom of speech.
I might have to do my own audiobooks, meaning I might have to read these motherfuckers myself. I don't know though. That's fucking strain on my eyes. I need reading glasses. I need real glasses. I've been procrastinating on getting glasses. But I need glasses, need reading glasses if I'm gonna do that. But doing that also makes me tired and sleepy, so I don't know if it'd be able to last 2 or 3 hours like this. So I just need to continue to find the right books that won't get me copyrighted. So
Others, and to apply myself heartily to philosophy. Him also I must thank for my hearing first Bacchius, then Tyndasis and Marcianus, that I wrote dialogues in my youth, and took a liking to the philosopher's palate and
really,
skins, and to the other things
get
which by the
LASIK.
Grecian discipline
Honestly,
belong to that
I'm scared of
profession.
surgery. Can't lie. I'm scared. Like I'm not scared, but like I don't ever want to just put myself get surgery. Put myself in like I don't know. It might not hurt, but it may not work either. Like I don't want to be that one person that shit don't work for or shit fuck me up. But I could sue if that did happen. So I don't know. I've been seeing LASIK too. I've been seeing it like crazy. Now that you mentioned it, I just always never thought about doing that. But that would be something I could research, look into, because honestly, glasses ain't gonna work. My daughter always breaking my glasses. Contacts ain't gonna work because I hate touching my eyes. So you got it before Mount Everest? Like I hope you speaking from experience or somebody you know personally got it done. But like, and does it work? Like I need to. I don't want to fucking do something that's gonna damage me in any type of way in the future. Like I want to be able to make sure that vision is going to be 20/20 HD. Okay, shit, I might have to look into that. Honestly, who knows? I feel woke. Alright,
To
I
Rusticus,
might
I
have
owe
to
my
get checked
first
out the LASIK.
apprehensions
Honestly, I'm
that
gonna
my
research it
nature
right
needed
now. As a matter of
reform
fact,
and cure,
right
and
now.
that I did not fall into the ambition of the common sophists, either by composing speculative writings or by declaiming harangues of exhortation in public. Further, that I never strove to be admired by ostentation of great patience in an aesthetic life, or by display of activity and application. That I gave over the study of rhetoric, poetry, and the graces of language, and that I did not pace my house in the senatorial robes or practice any similar affectation. I observed also the simplicity of style in his letters, particularly in that which he wrote to my mother from Sinuessa. I learned from him to be easily appeased, and to be readily reconciled with those who had displeased me, or given cause of offense, so soon as they inclined to make their peace. To read with care, not to rest satisfied with a slight and superficial knowledge, nor quickly to assent to great talkers. I have him to thank that I met with the discourses of Epictetus, which he furnished me from his own library. From Apollonius I learned true liberty and tenacity of purpose, to regard nothing else, even in the smallest degree, but reason always, and always to remain unaltered in the agonies of pain, in the losses of children, or in long diseases. He afforded me a living example of how the same man can upon occasion be most yielding, and most inflexible.
I'm about to schedule
He was
a
patient in
consultation.
exposition, and, as might well be seen,
Shout out to you,
esteemed his
Mount
fine
Aurelius,
skill and
for saying
ability
that.
in teaching others the principles of philosophy as the least of his endowments. It was from him that I learned how to receive from friends what are thought favors, without seeming humbled by the giver, or insensible to the gift. Sextus was my pattern of a benign temper, and his family the model of a household governed by true paternal affection and a steadfast purpose of living according to nature. Here I could learn to be grave without affectation, to observe sagaciously the several dispositions and inclinations of my friends, to tolerate the ignorant and those who follow current opinions without examination. His conversation showed how a man may accommodate himself to all men and to all companies. For though companionship with him was sweeter and more pleasing than any sort of flattery, yet he was at the same time highly respected and reverenced. No man was ever more happy than he in comprehending, finding out, and arranging in exact order the great maxims necessary for the conduct of life. His example taught me to suppress even the least appearance of anger or any other passion, but still with all this perfect tranquillity to possess the tenderest and most affectionate heart, to be apt to approve others yet without noise, to have much learning and little ostentation. I learned from Alexander the grammarian to avoid censuring others, to refrain from flouting them for a barbarism, solecism, or any false pronunciation. Rather was I dexterously to pronounce the words rightly in my answer, confining approval or objection to the matter itself and avoiding discussion of the expression, or to use some other form of courteous suggestion. Fronto made me sensible how much of envy, deceit, and hypocrisy surrounds princes, and that generally those whom we account nobly born have somehow less natural affection. I learned from Alexander the Platonist, not often nor without great necessity, to say or write to any man in a letter that I am not at leisure,
By the way, we
nor
listened to the
thus under
meditations.
pretext
If
of
you're new to
urgent
the live,
affairs to make a practice
the
of
auto war
excusing
just went off.
myself
So
from the duties which, according to our various ties, we owe to those with whom we live. Of Catullus I learned not to condemn any friend's expostulation, even though it were unjust, but to try to recall him to his former disposition, to stint no praise in speaking of my masters, as is recounted of Domitius and Athenodorus, and to love my children with true affection. Of Severus, my brother, I learned to love my kinsmen, to love truth, to love justice. Through him I came to know Thrasea, Helvidius, Cato, Bion, and Brutus. He gave me my first conception of a commonwealth founded upon equitable laws and administered with equality of right, and of a monarchy whose chief concern is the freedom of its subjects. Of him I learned likewise a constant and harmonious devotion to philosophy, to be ready to do good, to be generous with all my heart. He taught me to be of good hope, and trustful of the affection of my friends. I observed in him candor in declaring what he condemned in the conduct of others, and so frank and open was his behavior that his friends might easily see without the trouble of conjecture what he liked or disliked. The counsels of Maximus taught me to command myself, to judge clearly, to be of good courage in sickness and other misfortunes, to be moderate, gentle, yet serious in disposition, and to accomplish my appointed task without repining. All men believed that he spoke as he thought, and whatever he did, they knew it was done with good intent. I never found him surprised or astonished at anything. He was never in a hurry, never shrank from his purpose, was never at a loss or dejected. He was no facile smiler, but neither was he passionate or suspicious. He was ready to do good, to forgive, and to speak the truth, and gave the impression of unperverted rectitude rather than of a reformed character. No man could ever think himself despised by Maximus, and no one ever ventured to think himself his superior. He had also a good gift of humor. I learned from my father gentleness and undeviating constancy in judgments, formed after due reflection, not to be puffed up with glory as men understand it, to be laborious and assiduous. He taught me to give ready hearing to any man who offered anything tending to the common good, to mete out impartial justice to everyone, to apprehend rightly when severity and when clemency should be used, to abstain from all impure lusts, and to use humanity towards all men. Thus he left his friends at liberty to sup with him or not, to go abroad with him or not, exactly as they inclined. And they found him still the same if some urgent business had prevented them from obeying his commands. I learned of him accuracy and patience in counsel, for he never quitted an inquiry satisfied with first impressions. I observed his zeal to retain his friends without being fickle or over fond, his contentment in every condition, his cheerfulness, his forethought about very distant events, his unostentatious attention to the smallest details, his restraint of all popular applause and flattery, ever watchful of the needs of the empire, a careful steward of the public revenue. He was tolerant of the censure of others in affairs of that kind. He was neither a superstitious worshipper of the gods, nor an ambitious pleaser of men, nor studious of popularity, but in all things sober and steadfast, well skilled in what was honorable, never affecting novelties. As to the things which make the ease of life, and which fortune can supply in such abundance,
Hey,
he used
I gotta
them without
shout out to
pride.
Mr. Evers for mentioning that get lazy because I booked my appointment. So tomorrow I'm gonna be. Well, no, it's next week. I got an appointment next week, not tomorrow. Tomorrow wouldn't work, but I'm definitely gonna look into getting that because I can't just be getting older. My eyes are getting worse, especially when I be trying to avoid like wearing my glasses because that even meant like be weighing heavy on my face. Like it gets to a certain point where I hate wearing glasses. Like just it's irritating. So that's probably the thing that I should look towards getting. And plus, you said 2020 HD and gonna feel like you woke. Like what? Of course I'm gonna check that out. Hey, why not?
And yet, with all freedom, enjoyed them without affectation when they were present, and when absent, he found no want of them. No man could call him sophist, buffoon, or pedant. He was a man of ripe experience, a full man, one who could not be flattered, and one who could govern himself as well as others. I further observed that he honored all who were true philosophers without upbraiding the rest, and without being led astray by any. His manners were easy, his conversation delightful, but not cloying. He took regular but moderate care of his body, neither as one over fond of life or the adornment of his person, nor as one who despised these things. Thus, through his own care, he seldom needed any medicines, whether salves or potions. It was his special merit to yield without envy to any who acquired any special faculty, as either eloquence or learning in the law, in ancient customs, or the like. And he aided such men strenuously, so that every one of them might be regarded and esteemed for his special excellence. He observed carefully the
Hey, it's
ancient
NASCAR
customs
weekend
of
out
his
here.
forefathers, and preserved, without appearance of
Always shit
affectation,
going
the
on in
ways of
Vegas.
his native land.
Always.
He was not fickle and capricious, and loved not change of place or employment. After his violent fits of headache, he would return fresh and vigorous to his wonted affairs. Of secrets he had few, and these seldom, and such only as concerned public matters. He displayed discretion and moderation in exhibiting shows for the entertainment of the people in his public works, in his largesses and the like. And in all those things he acted like one who regarded only what was right and becoming in the things themselves, and not the reputation that might follow after. He never bathed at unseasonable hours, had no vanity in building, was never solicitous either about his food or about the make or color of his clothes, or about the beauty of his servants. His dress came from Lorium, his villa on the coast, and was of Lanuvian wool for the most part. It is remembered how he used the tax collector Tusculum, who asked his pardon, and all his behavior was of a piece with that. He was far from being inhuman or implacable or violent, never doing anything with such keenness that one can say he was sweating about it. In all things he reasoned distinctly, as one at leisure, calmly, regularly, resolutely, and consistently. A man might fairly apply to him, which is recorded of Socrates, that he could both abstain from and enjoy these things, in want whereof many show themselves weak, and in the possession intemperate. To be strong in abstinence, and temperate in enjoyment, to be sober in both, these are qualities of a man of perfect and invincible soul, as was shown in the sickness of Maximus. To the gods I owe it that I had good grandfathers and parents, a good sister, good teachers, good servants, good kinsmen and friends, good almost all of them. I have to thank them that I never through haste and rashness offended any of them, though my temper was such as might have led me to it, offered. But by their goodness, no such circumstances happened as could discover my weakness. I am further thankful that I was not longer brought up with my grandfather's concubine, that I retained my modesty, and refrained even longer than need have been from the pleasures of love. To the gods it is due that I lived under the government of such a prince and father as could take from me all vainglory, and convince me that it was not impossible for a prince to live in a court without guards, gorgeous robes, torches, statues, or such pieces of state and magnificence, but that he may reduce himself almost to the state of a private man, and yet not become more mean or remiss in those public affairs, wherein power and authority are requisite. I thank the gods that I have had such a brother as by his disposition might stir me to take care of myself, while at the same time he delighted me by his respect and love. I thank them that my children neither wanted good natural dispositions nor were deformed in body. I owe it to their good guidance that I made no greater progress in rhetoric and poetry, and in other studies, which might have engrossed my mind had I found myself successful in them. By the God's grace, I forestalled the wishes of those by whom I was brought up, in promoting them to the dignities they seemed most to desire. I did not put them off with the hope that since they were but young, I would do it hereafter. I owe to the gods that I never knew Apollonius, Rusticus, and Maximus, and that I have had occasion often and effectually to meditate with myself and inquire what is truly the life according to nature, and as far as lies within the dispensation of the gods to give suggestion, help, or inspiration, there is nothing to prevent my having already realized that life. I have fallen short of it by my own fault, and because I give no heed to the inward munitions and almost direct instructions of the gods, to whom be thanks that my body hath so long endured the stress of such a life as I have led. By their goodness, I never had to do with either Benedicta or Theodotus, and afterwards, when I fell into some foolish passions, I was soon cured. I give thanks that having often been displeased with Rusticus, I never did anything to him which afterwards I might have had occasion to repent. That though my mother was destined to die young, she lived with me all her latter years. That as often as I inclined to succor any who were either poor or who had fallen into some distress, I was never answered that there was not ready money enough to do it, and that I myself never had need of the like succor from another. I must be grateful too that I have such a wife, so obedient, so loving, so ingenuous, that I had choice of fit and able men to whom I might commit the education of my children. I have received divine aids in dreams, in particular how I might stay my spitting of blood and cure my vertigo, which good fortune happily fell to me at
He
Caeta.
was going off the spirit back
The
then. Like he was
gods
a spiritual
watched over
person.
me, also when I first applied myself to philosophy, for I fell not into the hands of any sophist, nor sat poring over many volumes, nor devoted myself to solving syllogisms or stargazing. That all these things should so happily fall out, there was great need both for the help of fortune and for the aid of the gods. In the country of the Quadi, by the Granua. End of Book 1.
Book 2. Say this to yourself in the morning. Today I shall have to do with meddlers, with the ungrateful, with the insolent, with the crafty, with the envious and the selfish. All these vices have beset them because they know not what is good and what is evil. But I have considered the nature of the good and found it beautiful. I have beheld the nature of the bad and found it ugly. I also understand the nature of the evildoer, and know that he is my brother, not because he shares with me the same blood or the same seed, but because he is a partaker of the same mind and of the same portion of immortality. I therefore cannot be hurt by any of these, since none of them can involve me in any baseness. I cannot be angry with my brother, or sever myself from him, for we are made by nature for mutual assistance, like the feet, the hands, the eyelids, the upper and lower rows of teeth. It is against nature for men to oppose each other, and what else is anger and aversion? All that I am is either flesh, breath, or the ruling part. Cast your books from you. Distract yourself no more, for you have not the right to do so. Like one at the point of death, despise this flesh, this corruptible bone and blood, this network texture of nerves, veins, and arteries. Consider, too, what breath is. Mere air, and that always changing, expelled and inhaled again every moment. The third is the ruling part. As to this take heed, now that you are old, that it remain no longer in servitude, that it be no more dragged hither and thither like a puppet by every selfish impulse. Repine no more at what fate now sends, nor dread what may befall you hereafter. Whatever the gods ordain is full of wise forethought. The workings of chance are not apart from nature, and not without connection and intertexture with the designs of Providence. Providence is the source of all things, and besides there is necessity, and the utility of the universe, of which you are a part. For to every part of a being that is good which springs from the nature of the whole, and tends to its preservation. Now the order of nature is preserved in the changes of the elements, just as it is in the changes of things that are compound. Let this suffice you, and be your creed unchangeable. Put from you the thirst of books, that you may not die murmuring, but meekly, and with true and heartfelt gratitude to the gods. Think of your long procrastination, and of the many opportunities given you by the gods, but left unused. Surely it is high time to understand the universe of which you are a part, and the ruler of that universe, of whom you are an emanation. That a limit is set to your days, which, if you use them not for your enlightenment, will depart as you yourself will, and return no more. Hourly and earnestly strive, as a Roman and a man, to do what falls to your hand with perfect unaffected dignity, with kindliness, freedom, and justice, and free your soul from every other imagination. This you will accomplish if you perform each action as if it were your last, without willfulness, or any passionate aversion to what reason approves, without hypocrisy or selfishness, or discontent with the decrees of Providence. You see how few things it is necessary to master, in order that a man may live a smooth-flowing, God-fearing life. For of him that holds to these principles, the gods require no more. Go on, O my soul, to affront and dishonor thyself. The time that remains to honor thyself will not be long. Short is the life of every man, and thine is almost spent, spent not honoring thyself, but seeking thy happiness in the souls of other men. Cares from without distract you. Take leisure, then, to add some good thing to your knowledge. Have done with vacillation, and avoid the other error. For triflers, too, are they who, by their activities, weary themselves in life, and have no settled aim to which they may direct, once and for all, their every desire and project. Seldom are any found unhappy from not observing what is in the minds of others. But such as observe not well the stirrings of their own souls must of necessity be unhappy. Remember always what the nature of the universe is, what your own nature is, and how these are related, the one to the other. Remember what part your qualities are of the qualities of the whole, and that no man can prevent you from speaking and acting always in accordance with that nature of which you are a part. In comparing crimes together, as, according to the common idea, they may be compared, Theophrastus makes the true philosophical distinction, that those committed from motives of pleasure are more heinous than those which are due to passion. For he who is a prey to passion is clearly turned away from reason by some spasm and convulsion that takes him unawares. But he who sins from desire is conquered by pleasure, and so seems more incontinent and more effeminate in his vice. Justly then, and in a truly philosophical spirit, he says that sin, for pleasure's sake, is more wicked than sin which is due to pain. For the latter sinner was sinned against, and so driven to passion by his wrongs, while the former set out to sin of his own motion, and was led into ill-doing by his own lust. Do every deed, speak every word, think every thought in the knowledge that you may end your days any moment. To depart from men, if there be really gods, is nothing terrible. The gods could bring no evil thing upon you. And if there be no gods...
Did you hear what he's saying? You gotta live your life like you about to die today, or you about to die tomorrow. You don't want to live your life working at a job you hate, being at a place you don't want to be in, being in a relationship you don't want to be in, like not living a life that you don't want to live, You gotta live every day like it's your last day, cause you never know where you gonna go. Like, motherfuckers be taking life for granted and not realizing shit. Somebody left. Motherfucker be taking life for granted, thinking they gonna live a long life because they ain't doing in the streets. They ain't doing nothing that can technically get them killed on a daily basis. But shit, just being in the car, you can get killed. Just being in your home, you can get killed. So live your life like it's your fucking last. Like if this was my last day on earth, I would be talking to y'all. I would be trying to give up some game. I would be spitting knowledge. I wouldn't be out there like doing no crazy shit. I'd be here with my family, like, cause that's what's making me happy. So how should days be lived, productive or happy? Happy and productive, cause you can like I'm being productive, you know, like this is like fun for me. Like shit, when it's especially when it's people coming in and y'all talking to, like this is way I'd rather be doing this than anything else, especially knowing I can get paid off of it. Like so I'm doing what I wanna do. Like my life is if like I said, if I was to die today, I'm happy how my life turned out. Cause I was in pursuit of my dreams. I didn't let nothing stop me but death. Like so you could be productive and happy.
Or if they have no regard to human affairs.
Cause it's work. Like you came here to do a job, not maybe not work a 9 to 5, but you came here with a purpose, with a mission. So you gotta find that, and that will become your job. And a job, it ain't gonna pay you. It's not no 9 to 5. It's 24/7. Like I live this 24/7. What I talk about every single day. Like what I do, read books, is every single day. Like so. I'm living my life. It wouldn't be no other way. I mean, of course, I like to travel more, go out the country more. Like, but at the same time, like, my kids is in school right now, so I live the life I want to live. Like Steve Jobs said, your time is limited. Exactly. Exactly.
Why should
Everybody
I
time
desire to
limited.
live in a world void of gods and without providence? But gods there are, and assuredly they regard human affairs, and they have put it wholly in man's power that he should not fall into what is truly evil. And of other things, had any been bad, they would have made provision also, that man should have the power to avoid them altogether. For how can that make a man's life worse which does not corrupt the man himself? Presiding nature could not, in ignorance or knowledge impotent, have omitted to prevent or rectify these things. She could not fail us so completely that, either from want of power or want of skill, good and evil should happen promiscuously to good men and to bad alike. Now death and life, glory and reproach, pain and pleasure, riches and poverty, all these happen equally to the good and to the bad. But as they are neither honorable nor shameful, they are therefore neither good nor evil. It is the office of our rational power to apprehend how swiftly all things vanish, how the corporeal forms are swallowed up in the material world, and the memory of them in the tide of ages. Such are all the things of sense, especially those which ensnare us with pleasure, or terrify us with pain, or those things which vanity trumpets in our ears. How mean, how despicable, how sordid, how perishable, how dead are they! What are they whose opinions and whose voices bestow renown? What is it to die? Your mind can tell you that, did a man think of it alone, and by close consideration strip it of its ghastly trappings, he would no longer deem it anything but a work of nature. To dread a work of nature is a childish thing, and this is, indeed, not only nature's work, but beneficial to her. Your reason tells you how man reaches God, and through what part, and what is the state of that part, when he has attained unto him. Nothing, says the poet, is more miserable than to range over all things, to spy into the depths of the earth, and search by conjecture into the souls of those around us, yet not to perceive that it is enough for a man to devote himself to that divinity which is within him, and to pay it genuine worship. And this worship consists in keeping it pure from every passion and folly, and from repining at anything done by gods or men. The work of the gods is to be reverenced for its excellence. The works of men should be dear for the sake of the bond of kinship. or pitied, as
Bless
we
you.
must pity them
Thank you, Kenneth.
sometimes,
You're welcome.
for their lack of the knowledge of good and evil. And men are not less maimed by this defect than by their want of power to know white from black. Though you should live 3,000 years, or as many myriads, yet remember that no man loses any other life than that which now lives, nor lives any other than that which he is now losing. The
Hey,
longest
44
and the
B
shortest
Dog back in
lives
there.
come to one
I followed
effect.
you on
The present
TikTok
moment
too, so
is the same
I
for
ain't
all
forget.
men, and their loss therefore is equal, for it is clear that what they lose in death is but a fleeting instant of time. No man can lose either the past or the future, for how can a man be deprived of what he has not? These two things then are to be remembered.
You should not be deprived of the past or future because both of those things you have not. Only thing you got now is the present. Like literally, you shouldn't worry about the past, future, none of that shit. If you can't control it, if it ain't here in this present moment, it don't fucking matter. Like nothing matters. No matter if you got some like plans tomorrow, week, next week, none of that shit matters because you never know. Like I said, it could be your last day. Like so, the only thing you should be taking into account is this present moment, this moment you in right now. That's the only thing that'll ever be here. Like literally, the past will never return. The future will never be here because you don't know what the future holds. Like all you know is the present moment. And most people don't live in the present moment. They live in their head, which is think about some old shit or think about some shit that probably ain't gonna never happen. Like so, they don't ever live in the present. Like it's rare that you find someone who lives in the present moment. I live in the present moment, but even then, I be in my thoughts a lot too. So, but overall, I meditate a lot. So I'm gonna always fucking. That's why you like weed, huh? Exactly. So I gotta stay like. Actually, I've been slowing up. I realize when I've been doing on this live, I've been, cause usually, man, I probably smoke probably a half an ounce a day by myself. Like, but when I've been doing this live, I ain't been smoking that much, but except when I get on live. Like, so I'm, I still fuck with the weed, live my weed, but I ain't doing it as much as I used to. Like, I don't know why I still got the same amount. Like, shit, it ain't like it's a lot. It's all about preserving, I guess. Like, you don't want to, like, when you get a bunch of money, you want to be able to hold your money or, like, have it tucked away so you don't have to worry about it. Like, most people, they get a bunch of money, they quick to spend it. Matter of fact, they spend their money before they get it. Like, that's how people stay broke. And, like, so, me, I want to be able to have an abundance and still be good, like and not have to blow it all or like let my urges or temptations like make me buy everything I see. Cause I know like shit, when I didn't have that much money, I was trying to buy everything that I seen. So with weed, I have an abundance of it, like so I'm trying to make myself like not smoke it, like if I don't need to, basically. Because I could be smoking all day. I could smoke 24/7 for a month and, like, still have something. Like, so I'm like, Kenneth, you don't need to do that just because you got a lot of it. Preserve it, like, shit. Because you never know what the future gonna hold. You think you got this abundance today, but who knows what's gonna happen tomorrow. So, you ever gotta limit yourself.
First, that all things recur in cycles, and are the same from everlasting, and that therefore it matters nothing whether a man shall contemplate these same things for 100 years, or for 200, or for an infinite stretch of time. And secondly, that he who lives longest, and he who
Make sure
dies
y'all give this
soonest,
video a thumbs
have an
up.
equal
Really
loss
appreciate it
in
if you do.
death. The present moment is all of which either is deprived, since that is all he has. No man can be robbed of that which he has not. Beyond opinion, there is nothing. The objections to the saying of Monimus the Cynic are obvious, but obvious also is the utility of what he said, if one accept his pleasantry as far as truth will warrant it. Man's soul dishonors itself, firstly and chiefly,
Thank
when
you
it
for
does
them
all it can
likes.
to become an
Thank
excrescence,
you for these
and
watch
as it
time
were an
hours.
abscess
Like I
on
said,
the
we trying to get
universe.
monetized,
To
so
fret against any particular event is to revolt.
I gotta be on here every single day to get monetized within like 6 months. So the only way I'm gonna make it through this stretch is listening to these books. Like, cause I mean, I could get on live every day, but what am I gonna talk about? Cause I ain't trying to talk about what's going on in the world 24/7. Cause what's that gonna do? Program me to fucking think about what's going on in the world. So listening to books, reading books is one of the best ways to enhance your mind, to enhance your life. Like, so I understand that. So if I do this every day, it's gonna attract people, and hopefully y'all get stuck. Stuck, not meaning stuck in life, but stuck here, like keep coming back. Like I'm trying to build like a core fan base, because even though I've been trying to do YouTube for like since 2017, it didn't start popping till now. So like shit, now it's like I'm really building my fan base on YouTube. Even though I did it on a podcast, it's time to bring it into fruition over here. Everyone in the chat.
Revolt against the general law of nature, which comprehends the order of all events whatsoever. Again, it is dishonor for the soul when it has aversion to any man, and opposes him with intention to hurt him, as
How I feel
wrathful
about
men.
Kanye Doc? I haven't seen it yet. I've been planning on watch it, but I don't watch TV. Like, so the only time I truly watch TV is when I get into bed. But I've been planning on to watch his Genius documentary on Netflix. I've definitely been planning on watching it. I just haven't got a chance to. But I fuck with Kanye off the back of his mindset. People think he something wrong with him. Like, nah, he way light years ahead of everybody on this motherfucking planet. Like, is what I see. My intuition tells me so. I'm gonna check it out, cause. And what's crazy, I've never been a Kanye music fan. Like, when Kanye came out, it was the same time 50 Cent, around the same time 50 Cent came out, I was a 50 Cent fan. Like, yeah, Kanye is woke. Like, when he went back into the church, like, that's when around the time I was waking back up, and like, knew he was woke, like, just off the shit he was saying. But when he went back into to the church, it kind of threw me off. But then I had to, like, understand, we talking about Kanye, but I had to understand, like, now in my journey, like, Jesus is, like, you do supposed to follow Jesus. Like, literally, he's on the right path. Like, he had the same journey I had, except ain't nobody put me in no fucking uh, mental hospital and tried to make me take medication. So, like, that's why, like, I fuck with Kanye. Like I said, I probably don't fuck with his music on a daily like that, but I do fuck with his mind. Like, shit, that boy is light years. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Do. Thirdly, it affronts itself when conquered by pleasure or pain. Fourthly, when it does or says anything hypocritically, feignedly, or falsely. Fifthly, when it
I'm
does
gonna
not
watch that
direct
and we
to
gonna
some
talk
proper
about it.
end all its desires and actions, but exerts them inconsiderately and without understanding. For even the smallest things should be referred to the end, and the end of rational beings is to follow the order and law of the venerable state and polity which comprehends them all. The duration of man's life is but an instant. His substance is fleeting, his senses dull.
Hey, we
The
also
structure of
hit
his body
15. Hey, shout
corruptible,
out to dancers
the
tonight
soul but a
coming
vortex.
through.
We cannot
We
reckon with fortune.
hit 15K today, so shout out to y'all for getting me to 15K. When we hit 20K, I'm gonna do a giveaway. I don't know what I'm gonna give away yet, but I'm gonna do a giveaway. So any way I can set that up, well, I got 5,000 subscribers to get there, so I don't know how long it's gonna take. So when I get to 20K, we're gonna do a giveaway, and when I get monetized, my first check, like, I'm gonna give that away too. So and that's what I'm gonna. I learned that from my brother watching it, like, just how he, hey, post shorts every day. Like, that's what I've been doing, and I've been getting on live every day. I've been averaging 6 videos a day for 90 straight days. I ain't took a break. Like, so if you willing to, like, put that work in, like, every single day you posting at least 6 shorts, like, you gonna grow your channel. And I ain't talking about shorts as in personal shorts as in your face. I'm talking about, I've been posting Nipsey interview clips. I'm pretty sure you've been seeing what I post. Like you don't have to post the same thing that I post, but you can post like whatever you're interested in. Like if you're a fan of Rick Ross, there's some things that he probably said that I haven't seen him say because I'm not truly a fan of his music. I'm a fan of his words and his business. So it's only certain things I see from Rick Ross. I see a lot of Nipsey because I'm a big Nipsey fan. So like whoever you're a fan of, like that's the type of fan base you want because you're a fan of that person. Obviously, you want people like you. Like so, when I start posting Nipsey, I wanted his fan base. Like so, and it's not like I'm stealing from him, like shit. But it's like that's the people who I'm pretty sure I can connect with more than a little Uzi fan. Like if I was posting his clips all the time, like I'm not saying nothing wrong with Lil Uzi. I'm just older, like so I don't want the younger generation. I mean, ain't nothing wrong with having the younger generation come through and learn, but overall, my fans is Nipsey fans, like so, or people who are a fan of money and like wealth and rich and trying to get rich. Like that's who I'm trying to like attract. I'm trying to attract those who are on the road to riches, like I am, like so.
or lay our account with fame. In fine,
Like I
the
said, if you
life
willing
of the
to do
body
that
is but a river,
six
and the
times a
life
day,
of the soul.
get on live. You ain't got to get on live for hours. Just show your face so people can know who they subscribe to. Then like shit, do it every day. And every day you're gonna learn something new. Like you're gonna know what works. You're gonna figure out what works for you. Like because what worked for me probably not gonna work for you. But like I said, I followed Nipsey's blueprint to get to where I'm at now. Like so, it's working. Like, and I'm not. I'm adding to my own. Like shit, he was interested in books. We both interested in books. But I'm doing this book club. I'm listening to books every day. Like so, hey, this is my niche. I'm not a rapper. I'm not. I can rap. I can make music. I've made a couple songs in the past, but I'm not a rapper. I just did it because I love music so much. Like I'm in a position in my life. Whatever I want to do, I can do it. Wherever I want to go, I can go. Like there's nothing restricting me in my life. Like so, trying to figure something out. Hey, whatever you trying to figure out, like shit, just keep trying to figure it out. Don't give up on what it is. Like shit. Strategize, plan, and execute. Or was it a plan, strategize, and execute? Whichever way it goes, like shit.
A misty dream. Existence is a warfare, and a journey in a strange land, and the end of fame is to be forgotten. What then avails to guide us? One thing and one alone: philosophy.
Damn, motherfuckers was trying to get famous back then. Like Marcus Aurelius was in the Roman emperor from 161 AD, like to 180 AD. Like that's before Christ, like or was it after Christ? I'm not for sure, but like they was trying to get famous back then. Like damn, like the fuck, what is it where everybody just want to be seen? Only reason I'm on this camera, it wasn't even to be seen. It was to blow the brand up, blow my company up. I need to market. Like I need to strategize. Like, YouTube is visual is the number one thing people are attracted to nowadays. Of course, music, but people love music videos. They get on YouTube to go listen to the music. So I had to get on YouTube and somehow, like so. I knew my face wasn't going to attract people because they don't know who the fuck I am. Why would you follow or look at me? Why would you click on my video? But like I said, when I started posting all them Nipsey videos and clips and like repeatedly, I'm telling you 6 videos a day average. I probably don't do that every single day, but on the average 90 days, I've been posting 6 videos a day. Like so, you gotta put that work in if you want to grow. And I got 14. I was already at when I first started this run. I was at 1,400 subscribers. Now I'm at 15K. Like so, 90 days grinding, grinding it out. And it's short. Shorts is like a minute clip on Instagram, not even a whole minute. You can find you 11, 10-second video clip that you're interested in. And fucking just keep posting it. Like, that don't even take 30, 40 minutes out your day. Like, I had to figure out what was going to work for me because I didn't want to be just posting long videos and trying to edit them, come up with, like, different titles and shit. Like, that wasn't working for me. Like, this is working better for me. So I'm like, I'm going to stick to this. I ain't about to switch it up. Like, I know if I just work on it every day, eventually, like it's gonna get to like 100K, a million, or shit. We take it further as it can go, like shit. So books, I know everybody don't love books, but eventually, like shit, I'm gonna make it cool for everybody to want to listen to audiobooks. So
And this consists in keeping the divinity within inviolate and intact, victorious over pain and pleasure, free from temerity, free from falsehood, free from hypocrisy, independent of what others do or fail to do, submissive to hap and lot, which come from the same source as we, and above all with equanimity awaiting death, as nothing else than a resolution of the elements of which every being compounded. And if in their successive interchanges no harm befall the elements, why should one suspect any in the change and dissolution of the whole? It is natural, and nothing natural can be evil. Ad carnuntum. End of Book 2.
literally, if a person is like damn near born evil, like a lot of serial killers, like I watched a few documentaries, right, and they told you their story, like their backstory and how they became to how they was. Like, how could you call a person evil if what they went through was like terrible and it like traumatized them to react in the way they react? Like, how could you? Yeah, they what they did was fucked up, but at the same time, they don't know that. Like, that's right to them. Like, so how could you call someone bad, good, or anything? There is no such thing as bad and good on this earth. Because at the same time, this is hell. This is where the most fucked up things you can imagine happen. Like, so there is no, they would program, of course, exactly. Answer my question.
Book 3. Man must consider not only that each day part of his life is spent, and that less and less remains to him, but also that, even if he live longer, it is very uncertain whether his intelligence will suffice as heretofore for the understanding of his affairs, and for grasping that knowledge which aims at comprehending things human and divine. When dotage begins, breath, nourishment, fancy, impulse, and so forth will not fail him. But self-command, accurate appreciation of duty, power to scrutinize what strikes his senses, or even to decide whether he should take his departure, all powers indeed which demand a well-trained understanding, must be extinguished in him. Let him be up and doing then, not only because death comes nearer every day, but because understanding and intelligence often leave us before we die. Observe what grace and charm appear even in the accidents that accompany nature's work. Thus some parts of a loaf crack and burst in the baking, and this cracking, though in a manner contrary to the design of the baker, looks well and invites the appetite. Figs, too, gape when they are at their ripest, and in ripe olives the very approach to rotting adds a special
Like
beauty to the fruit.
For sure.
The droop of ears of corn, the bent brows of the lion, the foam at a boar's mouth, and many other things, are far from comely in themselves, yet since they accompany the works of nature, they make part of her adornment, and rejoice the beholder. Thus, if a man be sensitive to such things, and have more than common penetration into the constitution of the whole, scarcely anything connected with nature will fail to give him pleasure, as he comes to understand it. Such a man will contemplate in the real world the fierce jaws of wild beasts with no less delight than when sculptors or painters set forth for him their presentments. With like pleasure will his chaste eyes behold the maturity and grace of old age in man or woman, and the inviting charms of youth. Many such things will strike him, things not credible to the many, but which come to him alone who is truly familiar with the works of nature and near to her own heart. Hippocrates, who had healed many diseases, himself fell sick and died. The Chaldeans foretold the fatal hours of multitudes, and afterwards fate carried themselves away. Alexander, Pompey, and Gaius Caesar, who so often razed whole cities and cut off in battle so many myriads of horses and foot, at last departed from this life themselves. Heraclitus, after his many speculations on the conflagration of the world, died swollen with water and plastered with cow dung. Vermin destroyed Democritus. Socrates was killed by vermin of another sort. What of all this? You have gone aboard, made your voyage, come to harbour. Disembark. If into another life, there will God be also. If into nothingness, at least you will have done with bearing pain and pleasure, and with your slavery to this vessel so much meaner than its slave. For the soul is intelligence and deity, the body dust and corruption. Waste not what remains of life in consideration about others, when it makes not for the common good. Be sure you are neglecting other work if you busy yourself with what such a one is doing and why, with what he is saying, thinking, or scheming. All such things do but divert you from the steadfast guardianship of your own soul. It behooves you, then, in every train of thought, to shun all that is aimless or useless, and above all, everything officious or malignant. Accustom yourself so, and only so, to think that if any one were suddenly to ask you, "Of what are you thinking now?" you could answer frankly and at once, "Of so and so." Then it will plainly appear that you are all simplicity and kindliness, as befits a social being who takes little thought for enjoyment or any phantom pleasure, who spurns contentiousness, envy, or suspicion, or any passion the harbouring of which one would blush to own. For such a man, who has finally determined to be henceforth among the best, is, as it were, a priest and minister of the gods, using the spirit within him, which preserves a man unspotted from pleasure, unwounded by any pain, inaccessible to all insult, innocent of all evil, a champion in the noblest of all contests, the contest for victory over every passion. He is penetrated with justice. He welcomes with all his heart whatever befalls or is appointed by Providence. He troubles not often or ever without pressing public need to consider what another may say or do or design,
He don't give a
solely
fuck
intent
about what
upon his
nobody
own
thinks or say.
conduct, ever mindful of his own concurrent part in the destiny of
talking
the
about me.
universe. He orders his conduct well, persuaded that his part is good. For the lot appointed to every man is part of the law of all things, as well as a law for him. He forgets not that all rational beings are akin, and that the love of all mankind is part of the nature of man. Also that we must not think as all men think, but only as those who live a life accordant with nature. As for those who live otherwise, he remembers always how they act at home and abroad, by night and by day, and how and with whom they are found in company, and so he cannot esteem the praise of such, for they enjoy not their own approbation. In action be neither grudging, nor selfish, nor ill-advised, nor constrained. Let not your thought be adorned with overmuch nicety. Be not a babbler, or a busybody. Let the God within direct you as a manly being, as an elder, a statesman, a Roman, and a ruler, standing prepared like one who awaits the recall from life in marching order, requiring neither an oath nor the testimony of any man. And withal be cheerful, and independent of the assistance and the peace that comes from others, for it is a man's duty to stand upright, self-supporting, not supported. If in the life of man you will find anything better than justice, truth, sobriety, manliness, and in some anything better than the satisfaction of your soul with itself in that wherein it is given you to follow right reason, and with fate in that which is determined beyond your control, if, I say, you find aught better than this, then turn thereto with all your heart and enjoy it as the best that is to be found. But if nothing seems to you better than the divinity seated within you, which has conquered all your impulses, which sifts all your thoughts, which, as Socrates said, has detached itself from the promptings of sense and devoted itself to God and to the love of mankind, if you find every other thing small and worthless compared with this, see that you give place to no other which might turn, divert, or distract you from holding in highest esteem the good which is especially and properly your own. For it is not permitted to us to substitute for that which is good in reason, or in fact, anything not agreeable thereto, such as the praise of the many, power, riches, or the pursuit of pleasure. All these things may seem admissible for a moment, but presently they get the upper hand and lead us astray. But do you, I say, frankly and freely choose the best and keep to it. The best is what is for your advantage. If now you choose what is for your spiritual advantage, hold it fast.
She didn't give
If
it
what
to
is
me.
for
She
your
just told me
body's
what it said.
advantage, admit that it is so chosen and keep your choice with all modesty. Only see that you make a sure discrimination. Never esteem aught of advantage which will oblige you to break your faith or to desert your honor, to hate, to suspect, or to execrate any man, to play a part, or to set your mind on anything that needs to be hidden by wall or curtain. He who to all things prefers the soul, the divinity within him, and the sacred cult of its virtues, makes no tragic groan or gesture. He needs neither solitude nor a crowd of spectators, and best of all, he will live neither seeking nor shunning death. Whether the soul shall use its surrounding body for a longer or shorter space is to him indifferent. Were he to depart this moment, he would go as readily as he would do any other seemly and proper action, holding one thing only in lifelong avoidance, to find his soul in any case unbefitting an intelligent social being. In the soul of the chastened and purified man you would find nothing putrid, foul, or festering. Fate does not cut off his life before its proper end, as one would say of an actor who left the stage before his part was ended, or he that reached his appointed exit. There remains nothing servile or affected, nothing too conventional or too seclusive, nothing that fears censure or courts concealment. Hold in honor the faculty which forms opinions. It depends on this faculty alone that no opinion your soul entertains be inconsistent with the nature and constitution of the rational being. It ensures that we form no rash judgments, that we are kindly to men and obedient to the gods. Cast from you then all other things, retaining these few. Remember also that every man lives only this present moment, which is a fleeting instant. The rest of time is either spent or quite unknown. Short is the time which each of us has to live, and small the corner of the earth he has to live in. Short is the longest posthumous fame, and this preserved through a succession of poor mortals, soon themselves to die. Men who knew not themselves, far less those who died long ago. To these maxims add this other. Accurately define or
If he
describe
said
everything that
those who
strikes.
don't know themselves, they died a long time ago. Like what they said, you don't get like if you don't know who you are, basically you're a dead man walking. And that's 90% of the world right now. Like shit, they don't know who they are. They not woke up to their higher self. Like so, it's our job to wake those people up. Everybody who in this listening to this, or whoever comes in and listening to this, like it's your job to wake people up. You're the quote unquote chosen ones. Like I realize it ain't sleep people who be popping in. I mean, it'd probably be one troll who come in, but overall, it's somebody who's already conscious on their journey, like wherever they at. Like, so it's y'all job is to wake up. Hey, yeah, sure. Make sure y'all subscribe to each other. Yeah, YouTube. That's dope how y'all subscribe. Cause that's how y'all gonna grow. Like shit, that's how you network with each other. It shouldn't just be me. It should be everybody networking with each other. Cause we all got different gifts. We all got certain strengths and certain weaknesses. So hey, you might need somebody on your journey. Like shit. For me, I wanna hire or probably not hire yet, but I'm gonna end up hiring somebody to chop up my videos. Like at least where when I'm on live like this and the book is playing, I won't have that chopped up, but the parts, certain parts where I speak, I'm gonna start making those into like clips like DJ Vlad. Like so, I'm gonna need somebody who got the time to do that. Like so, as I grow, ain't no telling we gonna come across who I'm gonna come across somebody that got certain gifts. So hey, I just open already.
strikes your imagination, so that you may see and distinguish what it is in naked essence, and what it is in its entirety, that you may tell yourself the proper name of the thing itself, and the names.
Watch. When my channel blow up, people are going to be screen recording like my conversation, and they're going to be making money off of it. You think I'm going to be mad off of it? Nah, I want people like to spread the message because that's what it's about. It ain't always about the income. Yes, we on the road to millions and billions, but at the same time, like we all about serving our purpose and like waking people up. So, hey, that's what people be getting mad when somebody like share their stuff. I'm like, not me. Shit, I want the world to see.
Of the parts
Especially
of
if I
which
could
it is
say it
compounded,
came out of my
and
mind,
into which it will
like
be resolved.
thoughts.
Nothing makes mind greater than the power to inquire into all things that present themselves in life, and while you examine them, to consider at the same time of what fashion is the universe, and what is the function in it of these things, of what importance they are to the whole, of what to man who is a citizen of that highest city, of which all other cities are but households. Consider what is this thing that now makes an impression on you, of what it is composed, and how long it is destined to endure. Consider also for what virtue it calls, whether it be gentleness, courage, truthfulness, fidelity, simplicity, independence, or any other. Say therefore of each event, this comes from God, or this comes from the conjunction and intertexture of the strands of fate, or from some chance or hazard of that kind, or this comes from one of my own tribe, from my kinsman, from my friend. He is, indeed, ignorant of what accords with nature, but I am not, and will therefore use him kindly and justly, according to the natural and social law. As to things indifferent, I strive to appraise them at their proper value. If you discharge your present duty with firm and zealous, yet kindly observance of the laws of reason, if you regard no by-gains, but keep pure within you your immortal part, as if obliged to restore it at once to him who gave it, if you hold to this with no further desires or aversions, and be content with the natural discharge of your present task, and with the heroic sincerity of all you say or utter, you will live well, and herein no man can hinder you. As surgeons have ever their knives and instruments at hand for the sudden emergencies of their art, so do you keep ready the principles requisite for understanding things divine and human, and for doing all things, even the least important, in the remembrance of the bond between the two. For in neglecting this you will scant your duty both to gods and men. Cease your wandering, for you are not like to read again your own memoirs, or the deeds of the ancient Greeks and Romans, or those collections from the writings of others that you laid up for your old age. Hasten then to your proper end, fling away vain hopes, and if you have any care for yourself, fly to your own succor while yet you may. Men understand not all that is signified by the words, to steal, to sow, to buy, to rest, to see what is to be done. For it is not the bodily eye, but another sort of sight that must discern these things. We have body, soul, and intelligence. To the body belong the senses, to the soul the passions, to the intelligence principles. To be affected by the imagery of sense belongs to the beasts of the field no less than to us. To be swayed by gusts of passion is common to us with the wild beasts, with the most effeminate wretches, with Nero and with Phalaris. Moreover, the possession of a mind to guide us to what seems fitting is shared by us with the atheists, with traitors to their country, and with such as shut their doors and sin. If, then, all the rest is common, as we have seen, there remains to the good man this special excellence, to welcome with pleasure all that happens or is ordained, not to defile the divinity enthroned in his breast, not to perturb it with crowd of images, but to preserve it in tranquillity, and obey it as a god, to observe truth in all he says, and justice in his every action. And though others may not believe that he lives thus in simplicity, modesty, and contentment, He neither takes this unbelief amiss from anyone, nor quits the road which leads to the true end of life, at which he ought to arrive pure, calm, ready to take his departure, and accommodated without compulsion to his fate. End of the third book.
Book 4. The power which rules within us, when its state is accordant with nature, so acts in every occurrence as easily to adapt itself to all present or possible situations. It requires will to work upon, but under proper reservation needs but the incitement to pursue, and makes matters for its activities out of every opposition, even though a fire masters that which is cast upon it, and though a small flame would have been extinguished, your great blaze quickly makes the added fuel its own, consumes it, and grows mightier therefrom. Let no action be done at random, nor otherwise than in complete accordance with the principles involved. Men seek retirement in the country, on the seacoast, in the mountains, and you too have frequent longings for such distractions. Yet surely this is great folly, since you may retire into yourself at any hour you please. Nowhere can a man find any retreat more quiet and more full of leisure than in his own soul, especially when there is that within it on which, if he but look, he is straightway quiet at rest. And rest I hold to be naught else but perfect order in the soul. Constantly, therefore, allow yourself this retirement, and so renew yourself. Have also at hand thoughts, brief and fundamental, which readily may occur, sufficing to shut out the discordant clamor of the world, and to send you back without fretting at the task to which you return. For at what do you fret? At the wickedness of mankind. Recollect the maxim that all reasoning beings are created for one another, that to bear with them is a part of justice, and that they cannot help their sin. Remember how many of those who lived in enmity, suspicion, and hatred, at daggers drawn, have been stretched on their funeral pyres and turned to ashes. Remember and cease from your complaints. Is it your allotted part in the world's destiny that chagrins you? Be calm and renew your knowledge of the alternative, that either Providence directs the world or there is nothing but unguided atoms. And recollect the many proofs that the universe is, as it were, a state. Do the ills of the body still have power to touch you? Reflect that the mind, once withdrawn within itself, once grown conscious of its own power, has no concern with the motions, rough or smooth, of the breathing body. Remember, too, all that you have heard and assented to concerning pain and pleasure. Are you distracted by the poor thing called fame? Think how swiftly all things are forgotten. Behold the chaos of eternity which besets us on either side. Think how empty is the noisy echo of acclamation, how fickle and how scant of judgment are they who would seem to praise us, and how narrow the bounds within which their praise is confined. All the earth is but a point in the universe. How small a corner of that little is inhabited, and even there how few are they, and how little worth who are to praise us. Remember then that there ever remains for you retirement into the little field within, and above all, be neither distraught nor overstrained. Hold fast your freedom, consider all things as a man of courage, as a human being, as a citizen, as a mortal. Readiest among the principles to which you look, let there be these two. Firstly, things external do not touch the soul, but remain powerless without, and all trouble comes from what we think of them within. Secondly, all things visible change in a moment and are gone forever. Recollect all the changes of which you have yourself been a witness. The world is a succession of changes. Life is but thought. If mind be common to us all, the reason in virtue of which we are rational is also common. So too is the power which bids us to do or not do. Therefore we have all a common law, and if so, we are fellow citizens and members of some common polity. The universe, then, must in a manner be a state, for of what other common polity can all mankind be said to be members? Wherefore it is from this common state that we derive our intellectual power, our reason, and our law. Or whence do we derive them? For that which is earthy in me is derived from earth, my moisture from some other element, my breath, and what is warm or fiery from their proper sources. And therefore, as nothing can arise from nothing or return thereto, my intellectual part has also a source. Death, like birth, is a mystery of nature, the one a compounding of elements, the other a resolution into the same. In neither is there anything shameful or against the nature of the rational animal or contrary to the law of its constitution. It is fate that such actions should come from such men. He who would have it otherwise would have figs without juice. This too you should remember, that in a very short time both you and he must die, and a little after not even the name of either shall remain. Suppress the thought, and the cry, "I am hurt," is gone. Suppress, "I am hurt," and you suppress the injury. What makes not a man worse than he was, makes not his life worse, nor hurts him without or within. The law of utility must act so. All that happens, happens right. You will find it so if you observe narrowly. I mean not only according to a natural order, but according to our idea of justice, and as it were by the action of one who distributes according to merit. Go on then observing this as you have begun, and whatever you do, let your aim be goodness. Goodness as it is rightly understood. Hold to this in every action. Think not as your insulter judges or wishes you to judge, but see things as they truly are. For two things be ever ready. First, to do that only which reason, the sovereign.
You know what thought was pop up in my head while I was listening to this book? As soon as I said that, I said zero people's there. Anyways, but anybody who do come in at whatever point, I just thought, like, when I read books that predates a certain time, like, it don't mention Jesus' name. Of course, because he could have been not here when that happened. But at the same time, like, Jesus is really only talked about in the Bible. But there's a Jesus. I mean, his name is not Jesus. His name is Horus, who was in Egypt. Then there was someone named Krishna, like, who's like the same as Jesus. So it was like, did Jesus live? Was his name Jesus? It probably wasn't Jesus. He probably had his own name. I don't know. Like, that's what I be not liking when I don't know someone's real name. Like when people used to always say God, talk about God. I'm like, who is like? What's the real name of God? Like, what's God's real name? I know they say Yahshua, but how do you know? Like, who said that? Like, I never that when I asked, I don't even think I ever asked. Yeah, but still, I used to always wonder like, how do people know? Like, because as far as I know, ain't nobody came out the sky. Ain't nobody been doing no miracles like Jesus. Ain't nobody even acting like Christians, like we're supposed to act. Like I'm like, this world is full of fucking lying, deceitful people trying to be famous, get famous, or whatever bad. Really, it would be the worst thing to get famous for, but people don't care. They just want to be seen. I'm like, I don't know. That ain't me. That could. I mean, I used to want fame. Like I got it to a certain extent, but then I realized that wasn't what I really wanted. What I really wanted was financial freedom and like to be able to live my life how I wanted to live on my terms, and like to be able to go wherever I want at any time. Like so, at first I thought fame is something I wanted because I was seeing always watching TV, like seeing the stars and celebrities. So of course you think that brings you riches, just being famous, being on TV, being seen. In reality, that shit don't. Just because you got a name, that don't mean you got money. Just because you got fame, you could be broke as fuck on TV. Because most of the time, people are living paycheck to paycheck. They spending it before they give it. Like, and most people, a lot of people are in debt. Like, so the people you're seeing on a 24/7 basis are probably just as miserable as you. I mean, not saying y'all miserable, like, just they're just as miserable than the majority of the world that's watching them. Like, so I understood that once I got a taste of fame. So I was like, let me fall back. Ain't no point in me trying to be famous. Let me just focus on getting some money. Because in the end, I want to be able to live the life I want to live. I don't want fame because everyone will be in my business. Exactly. Like, everybody be in your business. With the littlest things you do, the smallest things you say, like, they be on it. Like, damn, I can't even take a shit without you recording me. Like, what the fuck? Like, so I'm cool on that. I just give me the bread. Fuck that shit.
And legislative faculty suggests for the good of mankind. Secondly, to change your course on meeting anyone who can correct and alter your opinion. But let the change be made because you really believe it to be in the interest of justice or the public good, or such like, and not with any view to pleasure or glory for yourself. Have you reason? I have. Why then do you not use it? When it performs its proper office, what more do you require? You exist as part of a whole. You will disappear again in that which produced you, or rather, you will change and be resumed again into the productive intelligence. Many grains of frankincense are laid on the same altar. One falls soon, another later. It makes no difference.
So I'm gonna actually stop this book right here today, and we're gonna finish it tomorrow. And then that's when I think I'm gonna kick off the Bible series. So I know that'll be able to last 66 days. Well, probably not 66 days because I'll be playing certain. A lot of books ain't that long, so I'll probably be putting two and two. So it'll at least give me a month worth of books to listen to. Like so, and like I said, I got a lot of game information. What? Bye bye. See, as soon as I said I was about to get off, it was like they heard me. But I know I ain't said that loud. Like, but Dana gone. But yeah, we're gonna be back tomorrow and hopefully the next day. But as we continue to live in the present moment, like I can't speak for the future, but What matters most is now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Those who stayed for the majority of the books, definitely appreciate you. You the reason that I keep going, for sure. For real. See y'all later.